Southern England, though, plenty of sunshine, particularly through the evening. Actually, it's likely to become increasingly sunny as the sun starts to go down, and then clear skies overnight as the cloud and rain in the northeast starts to move into the North Sea. Always a chance of the odd shower continuing in one or two spots overnight, however, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder as well. But it's a warm night for many of us, 17 Celsius in some spots by dawn, and so it could be uncomfortable for sleeping. Nevertheless, for most, it's a fine start to Wednesday. Plenty of early morning sunshine. Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, much of England and Wales. One exception, northeast England, eastern Scotland could see some low cloud and some mistiness around the coast. And there's the chance further west of a heavy, thundery downpour later as temperatures rise, and we're looking at highs into the high 20s, low 30s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In County Durham, the A691 is blocked by an accident on Consett Road at Lanchester, causing queues. In West Yorkshire on the A58M in a ring road in Leeds, the westbound exit to the A64M at Woodhouse is blocked by an accident with queues towards there. On the M1 in Derbyshire, two lanes are closed southbound where someone's broken down between junctions 30 and 29A from Worksop to Markham Vale, causing delays. In Pembrokeshire, the A4076 is closed along Stainton Road at Milford Haven for an investigation. In London, on the A13, it's down to a single lane westbound. There's an accident at the Lodge Avenue junction at Barking with queues from Wellington. On the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junctions 8 and 7 from Bursledon to Hedge End, causing queues. And in Devon, the A38's closed westbound at Lee Mill after an accident. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
We've been talking about the White House is concerned with playing down concerns about the health of President Biden, who's apparently taken to freezing during public events. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni was seen herding the president back into a photo with world leaders after he shuffled aimlessly away from the group. In the last few days, videos and images of the president freezing at a fundraising event went viral, but the White House stated that they were deceptively edited cheap fakes. With me now, again, is my panel, the historian broadcaster Tessa Dunlop and the associate comment editor of The Telegraph, Mujaz Ahmed. Mujaz, I mean, you are a journalist. What about this idea that in some way the images could be fake?
They could be fake, and some of them will be fake. But the reason these AI images or AI videos or weirdly edited videos are a problem for the White House is that people have seen enough of Biden freezing in real life.
It's not going away, this one. It's perception versus reality, but as Mustafa said, it doesn't matter because it's now become Biden's reality, which is bushfighting these questions about his ability connected to his age. I don't understand where you go from here. He's got a vice president who isn't presidential material, who I think polls worse than he does, despite these, you would call them ageist. In many ways, it's about his competence, isn't it?
It can make a big difference when the president whose competence, mental competence, is under question, is running on the matter of competence itself. They're trying to paint Trump as being incompetent, as being not presidential, as being unable to lead, while they have a candidate who struggles to get off the stage. Yeah. That's the issue for them. And it's not really about age. He's not much older than Trump, as you say. It's about the appearance of age.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Morning, 9:30 on Tuesday, the 25th of June, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Very good morning to you. So, breaking news. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has walked free from Belmarsh prison after agreeing to an American plea deal.
Election gamble scandal. The Met Police have been accused of leaking the identities of Conservatives caught up in that election betting fix.
Princess Anne is in hospital for a third day, but worrying reports that she's suffering from memory loss after being injured by a horse.
And Sunak and Starmer clash on immigration. The Prime Minister sticks to his line. The Tories will bring down those coming here illegally across the Channel, and he takes aim at the Labour leader.
Queuing up in Calais, waiting for a Starmer government so they can come here and stay here.
The government should be deciding who comes to this country, and we need to know who it is that's coming to this country. So we have to deal with it.
And drama at Heathrow as the plane stairs catch fire next to a British Airways aeroplane. Fortunately, no one was injured. Mike's husband's been causing trouble, Andy.
He certainly has. James Cracknell, candidate up in the wilds of North Essex, said in a video, effectively to his constituency, as an Olympian, if his Olympian teammates behave like the Tories have, they'd be out of the team. He's talking about the betting scandal. One Tory candidate has admitted putting a bet on in pursuit, knowing the date of the election. So that's insider trading. Why hasn't he been suspended? That's
Anyway,
what Cracknell was saying.
James might be coming on this morning to tell us why he said that and what the response might have been from the Conservatives. GBNews.com/your say is the place to let us know your thoughts this morning. First, the very latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Bev, thank you. Good morning. It's 9:32. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Your headlines. Julian Assange departed the United Kingdom early this morning after agreeing to plead guilty to a single felony count in a US court. The 52-year-old founder of WikiLeaks is due to appear before a federal judge in the Mariana Islands, a US territory in the Western Pacific. He's expected to be sentenced to 5 years, roughly the equivalent of the time he's already served in Britain, before returning to Australia. It caps off a long and embittered standoff with the United States that started with his arrest on a Swedish warrant in 2010. The Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, told Parliament that the case has gone on for too long.
I've been very clear, as both the Labor leader in opposition, but also as Prime Minister, that regardless of the views that people have about Mr Assange's activities, the case has dragged on for too long. There's nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration, and we want him brought home to Australia.
The Metropolitan Police has denied leaking the names of Conservatives implicated in the election betting scandal. Reports in The Telegraph suggest the Cabinet Office suspects the involvement of police officers after the identities of those involved were made public. The newspaper also reports that a further 5 police officers are under investigation by the Gambling Commission. It comes after one of the Prime Minister's own protection officers was arrested for allegedly placing bets on when the election would take place. And Labour says reducing knife crime is not a problem for a single government department, as it pledges to crack down on the problem. Sir Keir Starmer will outline his plan to halve knife-related crime over the next 10 years if Labour wins the general election. It will include creating a new cross-government coalition to work on solutions, as well as community hubs involving youth workers, mental health support workers and career advisors. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Andrew and Bev.
Welcome to Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce.
In our smart, new, streamlined studio, your first time here.
It's lovely, isn't it? I like what you're doing with the place in my absence, Andrew Pearce. You've obviously worked very hard. I don't have you down as a painter and decorator, to be honest. But it does look good. And thank you at home, because GB News could not be evolving in this way if you weren't continuing to support us. Absolutely. There's the lovely wide shot of our lovely table. So onwards and upwards.
And breaking news overnight, this came from nowhere, actually. The WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, a person I find, by the way, intensely irritating, has been released from prison and has left the UK on his way to Australia, where he's from, after reaching a plea deal with US authority over spy charges.
So these, of course, have been going on for more than a decade. Assange is due to plead guilty to a single espionage charge in a court appearance on a tiny US-controlled Pacific island.
So his wife Stella released this film following his release.
It's exactly 12 years today since Julian went into the embassy of Ecuador, which granted him political asylum. Protection from persecution, from torture, from a life imprisonment. And 12 years on, I'm visiting Julian in a high security prison. But this period of our lives, I'm confident now, has come to an end. And I think that by this time next week, Julian will be free.
And she was right. I mean, Julian...
Who was she saying? Who was going to torture him then?
Well, it depends if you want to be kept from your loved ones. I guess what she's saying is for her that is a form of torture. He would argue that he has always been a fierce advocate of freedom of speech, and in releasing those WikiLeaks documents, maybe he would say it was worth putting certain lives at risk to hold the American government to account for war crimes.
Yeah, I mean, remember what he did? He didn't do a forensic journalistic job. He dumped, they call it a dump, millions of documents and cables onto the internet, and then the American authorities insist that as a result of that, not only were spies and international people lives were put at risk, they say people were killed as a direct result. So that's why Americans accused him of breach of, well, betrayal, treachery, and Britain put him in court. He was winning his appeal process, oddly, but he's just decided to do some form of plea bargain with America, so it's over. And he moves to Australia and never comes back. Good riddance, I say.
Well, let's speak to international human rights lawyer David Hay now. Morning, David. It is a little bit... This is a complicated issue, which is around free speech, national security issues, the extent to which journalists might put people at risk, even if they feel they're doing the right thing. What's your assessment of this very complicated scenario?
Hi, good morning to you both. It's obviously very fantastic news for Julian personally, and also for Stella, his wife, who has campaigned tirelessly for his freedom. But as you said, it's a very complicated issue, and it's also one that's been going on, as we in England know, a very, very long time. I'm sure many people remember the scenes of him outside the Ecuadorian embassy, up until obviously the arrest and then going into Belmarsh. It's been going on a very long time. Effectively, what's happened is that, for want of a better phrase, he's done a deal with the devil, as it were. There's been a plea deal that we expect will happen and go through in the coming days, which will mean that effectively he will come away with one charge under the Espionage Acts in the US, when he was originally accused of a great many more, and he will effectively have served his time, as in the 5 years in detention in Belmarsh. So he will leave as a convicted criminal, which in itself is going to cause him many, many issues in his personal life and travelling. But then also what we should look at is, what are the ramifications of this deal for others? Does it go into free speech and journalism? Because effectively he's done a deal with the US. He obviously claimed that he was a journalist and he was releasing those documents as part of free speech and a free press. Will that see a precedent set as to how other journalists and others that do this in future act? That's one of the things I think we need to look at here.
Well, and David, on that point, well, there are those who would argue he never was a journalist, he was an activist. There is a difference, I would argue. But also there will be those people who've been campaigning for him who will feel bitterly let down because of the freedom of speech issue. He's waved the white flag, done a deal. And what about other people who may be in the same position, who may not get that plea deal?
Absolutely, I agree there will be. I mean, there are many people that will see that he's effectively, as you said, waved the white flag and left the gates open, because effectively he's admitted by this plea deal, he'll be admitting that he committed a crime and for which he should have been given a sentence, and he's accepted that. So that's obviously will upset a lot of people, but obviously from a personal perspective for him, facing a potentially significant time, his life in jail in the US, it's obviously a deal that for him personally and his family is one that he's decided to take.
OK. All right. Thank you, David. David Hay there, international human rights lawyer. Thank you very much. You can see the crowds there supporting Julian Assange.
Well, I think a lot of those will be very disappointed because of the human rights issue. But the other point about Assange, I think he did his campaign no good at all, because he flatly refused to go to Sweden to face serious allegations of sexual abuse against 2 women. Sweden is a liberal country by any stretch of the imagination. What was he expecting? That they were going to put him on a plane immediately to the United States? I think he should have faced that down and gone to court and cleared his name.
I guess you would say at that point that those allegations were false and it was just a means of containing him and constraining him.
Well, they ran out of time in the end because of the time limitation. But I think if you're a fearless campaigner for freedom of speech and truth, why don't you face the music over serious allegations of sexual abuse levelled by 2 women?
Let us know your thoughts this morning, gbnews.com/your say. But let's get back to the election campaign. Let's take a look back at what the politicians have been doing over the past 24 hours, including Sir Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak's interviews with the Sun newspaper.
Either you believe illegal migrants should not be in our country, they should be removed to somewhere else, or with Keir Starmer, they're all going to be released, all the people we've detained, and they will be out on the streets. And that's a choice for everyone.
And nobody should be making that journey across the Channel. Nobody. It's a breach of our borders. It's also, I think, a matter of national security, because the government should be deciding who comes to this country, and we need to know who it is that's coming to this country.
The NHS and care, the centre point of our manifesto, with a huge package of £9 billion of investment. Partly that's in GPs and local services, so people don't have to go to hospital quite so much.
What type of boiler do you have at home?
At the moment, I have a gas boiler, and I'm literally in the process of getting quotes for replacing it with an air source heat pump.
This is what Boris said. Boris blames the European Union for war in Ukraine.
I laughed out loud at the Green Party leader. What sort of boiler do you... She's got the sort of boiler she wants all of us to take out of our homes by 2030. She's just getting estimates now. Is that because there's a general election on? The hypocrisy of it. Remember we had Labour Shadow Transport Secretary a couple of weeks ago, Louise Haigh, saying, you've all got to get out of your gas-guzzling cars and your diesel cars. You're going to get into electric cars. I know they're very expensive. What sort of electric car do you have? I don't have one yet, but when I replace it, I will. Not do as I do. Do as I say, not do as I do. The oldest rule for politicians, and they break it all the time.
What day is it today? Tuesday. So we have 9 days until the election. And is anything going to change in the next 9 days? I think actually Labour's announcement on the trans issue in schools did them no good yesterday. Well, a lot of people will feel quite strongly about that.
And it's gone further because the Times are saying that conversion therapy will be banned altogether, and we've got Hilary Cass, who did that review into the trans issue, saying this will create martyrs. So you might say to your daughter or your son, or any mum or dad could say it to their child, no, it's a very bad thing. They could become a test case. Because that is preaching against their right to change their gender. Will it be a teacher?
And
will it be a doctor?
Therapy being, we should explain what conversion therapy is, which is that you intensely convince a child with religion. I'm sure the religion often plays a part in it, doesn't it? It can be a driver behind it.
You can have conversion therapy, which I...
To say that they aren't
which is
gay,
horrible, where
trans.
They used to sort of give electrotherapy or make you take drugs, or they just almost try and hypnotise you into not really thinking you're gay or trans. But what Cass is worried about, and she's a very eminent paediatrician, is that this will be genuine parents, teachers, people working with youth workers, talking to a 15-year-old who says, I want to change my gender. Actually, you've got to think about it in a lot of ways, that they could then be told, you're trying to convert me against my will, and there could be a test case.
Because therapy could just be talking therapy. Exactly. Why do you hate yourself so much that you believe you've been born in the wrong body? Which is absolutely should be the starting point for any child who's talking about the fact that they think they were born in the wrong body. And that, as you say, the young person could then go and say they're trying to brainwash me and say that I'm not who I am. It gives the power to the child and not the adult.
And J.K. Rowling, who I'm a huge admirer of, has written a 2,000-word essay effectively saying why she can't support Labour, because all this stuff is anti-women. Anti-women, women-only spaces.
And also very much about, well, the tyranny of the minority. You've heard me say it before, but I'll say it again. Right, up next, Andrews are going to get his England flag out. We're looking ahead to the final group game in the Euros tonight. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel. This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The new BBC Director of Sport, who's a man called Alex K. Jelski, who's downplayed fears raised by sports women about biological men competing in female categories. And he's also called Martina Navratilova, I've got to say, has to be probably the most successful woman tennis player in history, and a very brave woman too. She escaped the Iron Curtain and she came out. And Sharon Davis, he says, are not experts on the issue.
At the same time, transgender US swimmer Leah Thomas has lost her legal battle and been told that she cannot compete at the Olympics.
So Leah Thomas made an appeal to World Aquatics, who have this rule in place that says that they protect the female category, as does athletics and world cycling. And because Leah doesn't actually qualify, because Leah isn't training, so she's not even someone that would be potentially part of the Olympic team. They just said that, you know, you don't qualify to be able to bring this case. It's been thrown out on a technicality, thank goodness, and which means that, you know, swimming will not have any males beating elite females in Paris this summer, which was particularly good for me, bearing in mind that I now have to be very careful about what I'm allowed to say and not say. We're not allowed to use the words biological male, transitioned male. I mean, just every single possible way that we could explain that the person in the race wasn't a female, and it only affects women. It doesn't affect men. You know, females that identify as male are no risk to men's sport in any shape or form. It's just women that are losing their opportunities. The thing I take the most offence to, and this is very serious, and this needs to be dealt with by the BBC, and this is why I wrote to Tim Davie. In that article, he compared males that are identifying as women in women's sport to Jamaican and Ethiopian females being allowed to compete.
What?
The People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
(9:49). This is Britain's Newsroom in our very fabulous new studio, which we love very much. Football fever, I've been told to say.
Football fever, what does that mean to you, Andrew?
I've been told to say it, football fever, because we're playing Slovenia.
Good. Football.
And we have
hope so.
Nobody better than Mr. Football himself, Paul Coyte.
Yes.
So England expects. Are we right to expect?
You know what? It happens every tournament. You know, we spoke to Steve McManaman a little bit earlier, who played back in 1996, and then back in the Euros in '96, it started badly, and the press were on their case, and then the momentum started to build. Now, we know that things are not good. We spoke about Gary Lineker yesterday, his criticism, which I absolutely stand behind. He's got every right to say whatever he wants, whereas it seems that, it's a really big deal and ex-players shouldn't be able to criticise the team, which I think is nonsense. Yeah, they've got every right to, and that's him doing it in a professional capacity.
He's paid to do a professional job. I can't stand him, and he's paid far too much money. Right. You would do it much better, presumably for a lot less.
No, I'd probably be more. I would probably be more. Anyway, look, we can...
Bev and I have offered to do it between us for a tenth of what he's being paid.
I know, but the thing is, you have a lovely time where you do it. I know, that's the thing. Shall we hear from Gareth Southgate? This is Gareth Southgate was speaking yesterday.
The manager.
The manager, of course, and was asked about the criticism and whether that's going to affect the team or what he thought about what people were saying about them.
Listening to external criticism, we know what we've done well. We're very honest about that. We know where we need to be better. We're brutally honest about that. And that's how you work as a team. That's how you coach a team. That's how you improve performance.
And tomorrow's a chance for us as a group to bounce back from the other night. And I think that's the beauty of football, that you always get another chance to go again. And
I thought that was our very own Ben Leo then. Who's that?
No, that's Declan Rice. Right. Declan Rice, who plays for Arsenal, who plays in the midfield.
Is he in the youth team?
Fine plays. Listen, they're all quite young these days, you know. They're not,
they are.
It's not like Stanley Matthews playing now. It's not like the old Swindon team from 1969. It's not that lot again. That's twice I've mentioned Swindon.
Brilliant.
He pays me at least 10 quid every time I mention Swindon Town. But the thing is, Gareth Southgate says that he doesn't look at the press, doesn't hear it.
I don't believe it.
I don't think anybody
Doesn't look like a terribly inspiring man, Gareth Southgate. How does he manage the team? Like, what's his MO, do you think?
He's actually a very good people person. Okay. We know from the way that he's dealt with the press and also the problems that the England teams had with press before. Now there's it's like he's almost brought them in to say, look, you know, it's little things like, you know, we'll have darts competitions with the press just so everybody can actually get to know each other instead of it's us and them. So he's done that very well, but the most important thing is what goes on the pitch, and at the moment it's not very good.
We won the first game against Serbia 1-0.
Correct.
We drew 1-1 with Denmark.
Yep.
And we weren't very impressive in either of the games.
No, not at all.
Would he have to shake up the team?
I think he needs to do something. It's either we stick with the team as it is and hopefully things will work out, but everybody knows that something is not right, but nobody seems to be able to put their finger on it. The simple thing is, when it comes to England, attacking-wise, they're unbelievable. We've got some fantastic play. You look at Harry Kane, he's probably the best in the world at what he does. You've got Jude Bellingham that sits a little bit deeper, who's also, you know, plays for Real Madrid. We know how great he is at 20 years old. So really, that's where the strength is. But for some reason, England go ahead, and then instead of going on swashbuckling, entertaining football, what everybody wants to see, they sit back. And it just starts getting boring, and you're thinking, what is going on? Then mistakes can't start happening. So really, it's to play with no fear, to go out there, entertain, do what you do. Instead of thinking, it's almost like you see in players that think, I don't really know what to be doing here. I don't know whether I should be sitting, where I should... you know, if I was the manager, say, go out, do what you do.
So they're the sporting equivalent of Keir Starmer in the run-up to an election.
I'm just thinking that.
Aren't they? They're doing the Ming Vars version of football.
You know what?
Play it safe, get to the end.
Yeah, are they thinking, we've got this one, if we don't make any mistakes, then we should be OK. Yeah. But if you want to go out and absolutely obliterate anybody, which I think England can do, I really do think England can do that.
Right.
Just shackles off.
So, prediction for the score?
I think it's going to be 3-0.
3-0?
To Slovenia.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. No, I think they're going to score. I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and say 2 or 3-0 because I think England have to go out and make a statement now because all the dissenting voices are getting louder and louder and louder. They have to go out and make a statement today, and I really hope it happens. And then the knockout stages, because we don't know whether we're going to play Sunday or whether we're going to play Monday. It all depends on other results.
Is it 8 o'clock kickoff?
It's 8 o'clock kickoff. If we come second in the group, which we shouldn't do, that would mean Germany on Sunday. No. And we don't want that. So go out and win the game.
OK, right, super. Thank you very much, Paul. Still to come this morning, find out what's going on with the Conservatives. It's not the election. First, though, here's the...
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hot and sunny for many places in the south today, but cloudier, cooler in the north and with a few showers. We start the day with cloud cover across some western and northwestern parts of the UK. Northern Ireland, Western Scotland seeing a few spots of rain. By the afternoon, the weather front responsible for that rain pushes into eastern Scotland, northern England, and could give a few showers, perhaps some longer spells of rain for northeastern parts of Scotland. Otherwise, widespread sunny skies for much of England and Wales, and rising temperatures 30 or 31 Celsius possible in some of the hotter spots. Later Tuesday, some of the heavier rain across northeast Scotland begins to clear, but it could last until the evening, and there'll be always the chance of a shower or two further west across Scotland and in the south, particularly over the southern uplands. It's drying up and clearing up across Northern Ireland, but for northern England, yeah, 1 or 2 sharp showers are possible over the North Pennines, for example. Wales, central and southern England, though, plenty of sunshine. Particularly through the evening, actually, it's likely to become increasingly sunny as the sun starts to go down, and then clear skies overnight as the cloud and rain in the northeast starts to move into the North Sea. Always a chance of the odd shower continuing in 1 or 2 spots overnight, however, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder as well. But it's a warm night for many of us, 17 Celsius in some spots by dawn, and so it could be uncomfortable for sleeping. Nevertheless, for most, it's a fine start to Wednesday. Plenty of early morning sunshine. Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, much of England and Wales. One exception, northeast England, eastern Scotland could see some low cloud and some mistiness around the coast. And there's the chance further west of a heavy, thundery downpour later as temperatures rise, and we're looking at highs into the high 20s, low 30s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In County Durham, the A691 is partly blocked by an accident on Consett Road in Lanchester, causing queues. The A58M in a ring road in West Yorkshire, the westbound exit to the A64M at Woodhouse in Leeds is blocked by an accident causing queues. On the M1 in Derbyshire, 2 lanes are closed southbound, with someone's broken down between junctions 30 and 29A from Worksop to Markham Vale. It's sloped towards there. On the M5 in Worcestershire, there's a lane closed southbound after an accident between junctions 4A and 5 from the M42 to Droitwich, causing delays. In Pembrokeshire, Stainton Road at Milford Haven is closed for an investigation. In Hampshire, the A31 is partly blocked westbound by an accident at Polner, causing queues. And a couple of problems in Devon. The A39 is closed each way between Barbrook and Hillsford after a coach caught fire. And the A38 is closed westbound at Lee Mill after an accident with queues back beyond Ivy Bridge. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Room. We're going to cross live now to the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, who is in London. They are talking about knife crime.
We want to be around the table with you because we do have the answers. Right now we've got patrols, Idris, volunteers that are patrolling before school and after school because we haven't got enough police officers. We haven't got enough, so people in the community are desperate. Wow. And the most horrible thing is, They're saying it's becoming the norm. We don't want it to become the norm. It's not normal for us to be burying our children or 5-year-olds seeing a dead body, shrines in our neighbourhoods. Now we've got shrines of flowers. It's not normal.
No.
So I'm begging. I feel refreshed and strengthened. I've got 2 giants beside me, but it's not easy. No. And we've got hundreds of thousands that are following us. We can make this stop. Yeah. Let's do it. Let's make it stop together.
Thank you for that. That was really, really powerful and emotional, and it's a reminder of just what this means, how it means, and I don't know how all of you are coping, to be honest. I really, really don't. And we must carry that passion and that power with us.
I don't think it's easy for any of us, but we just want to see change here. Like, we want to see... I'd rather not be standing here talking about knife crime. You know, all of us would rather not be here today. You know, we need to see a change and a long-term plan. It has to be a 5-10-year plan. If it takes 10 years, then so be it.
But you've been waiting a long time already, many of you.
Yeah,
you know, as I said, 16 years we lost our son. This week it comes up the lights. Now we've lost him longer than we had him. Yeah. But in that 16 years, nothing's really changed. There's been plenty of promises from various prime ministers, foreign ministers, home secretaries, you know, and it's time, like, for the sake of our children and our grandchildren, we need to see something done that is really going to make a difference.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course. No, you're absolutely right, and we must be held to account, and you must hold me to account personally, all of you around this table. It's really important that. I mean, I'll come back to that point because I think I'll bring you in and I'll come straight back to it.
I just wanted to say, 10 years ago, your son was murdered by a sword, and 2 years ago, it happened to my child. So what happened in the 80s? What did the government do? If the 8 years gap, if they did something after your child's murder, if they banned these weapons, my son would have had a chance to live next to me today. He would have had that chance. So the government for 8 years didn't do anything. Now it's been a year since I've been campaigning. They haven't done anything. And I'm so grateful that you're listening to all of us. You're listening to all of us. Yeah. But this change is not for us anymore because the damage is done. We lost our children. This is to protect the future of UK. So you can build a good government and a good people around it. This is for the future children. Protect them. They need that. They're screaming. I think these murders are the scream for help. Let's help them.
Well, that's Keir Starmer at an event on the campaign trail in London. The actor Idris Elba appears to be there too. But we're going to talk about the terrible news about Princess Anne, Princess Royal. She's recovering in hospital. She's got head injuries, concussion that we know about, temporary memory loss. We think it was an accident involving her horse.
Awful, awful. She's not going to be able to greet dignitaries from Japan later today. So we're joined now by Ezra Village for the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Morning, Charlotte. Crikey, the last thing the royal family can deal with at the moment is another one of their key figurehead members being out of action. Do we know anything about what happened?
Well, the irony is even Princess Anne doesn't know what's happened. And actually, it's kind of worrying because she just can't really remember what happened. And she was completely alone in the field. So her daughter Zara has described...
This was at her Gatcombe Park estate in Gloucestershire.
She was at Gatcombe Park estate, and what she's known to do is take evening strolls to check on her horses, alone sometimes.
Right.
And Zara once described how even if she's been at a royal event, she'll go with her full makeup and hair and pearl earrings just for a walk around the field with her welly boots on and her nice outfit. So she loves doing this. It's obviously something she does regularly. I dread to think how long she was there on her own for, because she was completely on her own, and then eventually she was found. I mean, I hope she wasn't there on her own, unconscious. She was maybe kicked by a horse, we think. And the irony is, if she'd been on the horse, she probably would have been fine because she's an excellent horsewoman.
Yeah.
She very rarely falls or hurts herself, but this time she was on foot, so she was hit by a horse, we think.
And she's in hospital. They say she could be in for a whole week.
Yeah.
Concussion can have all sorts of complicating factors. The fact she can't remember what happened should be a cause for concern.
I think really concerning. It's actually not the first time. She's been concussed before, back in the 70s, and she said she literally, the whole day was gone.
Right.
She had an accident while she was on horseback. But yes, she's going to be in for the whole week. It suggests that they are taking this very seriously. Although they did say she's expected to make a full recovery, and actually it was so nice to hear those words. I hadn't realised how much we've been missing them.
I know.
They immediately said she's going to make a full and swift recovery. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to hear that about Charles yet. Yeah, so she's kind of trying to piece together the facts herself at the moment.
I really hope it isn't swift, actually, because any sort of post-traumatic amnesia with a head injury would suggest that it was fairly significant. Because we've all, you know, you get a knock on the head, you know, as long as you're slightly dazed but you know what's just happened, probably going to be OK. We see it with rugby players, don't we, now? They take concussion much more seriously. You'd like to think they do not rush her back to work.
I'm sure they won't. However, she is so fundamental.
Yeah.
She did 30% of this year's royal engagements earlier this year. And, you know, for the Japan state visit today, it's actually really, really important. It's been rearranged once. There's a lot of pressure on this event. They really needed her gravitas, because she is a little piece of Prince Philip and the Queen. She's just the perfect combination of the two.
Yeah, she is.
And the gravitas and experience she would have brought to the state banquet today was really important. And as we know, we're missing many other royals.
Yeah, well, Princess of Wales won't be there.
No, and there's no non-working royals now, they've decided. So they can't just draft in even Anne's daughter, Zara, because she's a non-working royal. She doesn't even have a royal title, because Anne actually decided that she couldn't have one, which is a very Anne-like move. They can't just draft in a Beatrice and Eugenie. There was some hope that that might happen, but no, it's only working royals today.
Prince Andrew is retired, effectively.
Andrew's retired. We all know what happened to Meghan and Harry. So it's going to be really worrying for them that she's not there. Obviously, they're worried about her health, but they needed her there. She was going to have one of the very top positions at this banquet tonight. And
she was going on an official visit to Canada.
Yes.
Did you see the itinerary?
Whistle-stop itinerary. I think it was something like 24 or 48 hours. She was
in Canada.
Yeah, but flying all that way there for 2 days and then coming straight back.
And she's 73?
Yeah.
She's 73. It's a lot of pressure. And of course, there's a lot of royals that aren't working at the moment. And basically, the workload has gone on to Anne. And she's very willing. But this is the thing. Sometimes you need to save people from themselves, because Anne will always say yes. And she does get stuck in. And interestingly about Canada, she very rarely does what a lot of other royals do, which is bolt on a holiday onto the end of these things. She was literally going to Canada, coming straight back.
She doesn't look like the kind of woman that really believes in holidays, does she?
No, I don't think.
It's her mother's ethic. Do you know, I saw her at one of the Buckingham Palace garden parties a few weeks ago. It was on a Friday. She was amazing with those veterans. It was it was to raise awareness for military veterans charity. Implausibly, I was putting the line up to meet her, and I said, hang on, she doesn't really do people like me. No, you're going to... And I did say to her, look, I know you don't normally talk to people, you're quite right, I don't, but you're supporting the charity, it's fine. But I did say to her, how long are you going to keep this pace up?
Yeah, what did she say?
She said, I think I've got to, don't you? Got to carry on. And it was that...
Keep calm and carry on.
Exactly.
She is that, isn't she? Embodies that.
And she's 73.
Thank God it was just a kick to the head on the horse. I mean, I know it sounds... I
well, I think she's
what if
brilliant.
next time it's something more serious and it's completely taken out of the game? You know, and there's a long time before George turns 18 and these new royals start coming up. There's a bit of a gap in bodies at the moment to get on the ground, boots on the ground.
OK. All right, thank you, Charlotte. Thanks so much. Now, a man who has met Princess Anne, I have a feeling she gave him one of his Olympic gold medals. He'll tell us in a minute. Former Olympic rower, my ex-husband, James Crattenley, standing for the Conservatives in this election. And he called the party a shower of beep. Starts with a sh. Let's take a look at the video posted on social media.
2 weeks out from the Olympics, and if we are competing against the Conservative Party, my teammates and I would be saying they are a shower of and if one of my teammates got caught for cheating, they'd be dead to me. Right,
I don't hire James Crattenley unless you expect to get some frank talking and honesty. And I think James is going to join us now. Morning, James.
Morning.
Morning. Are you all right? What's the fallout been from your typical straightforward honesty?
Well, the fallout is actually nothing official comes back. I don't think I'm going to have a portrait above the boardroom table at Central Office headquarters. But I think the reason why I said it is, and from a sort of team point of view, if we had been competing against a team that was behaving like that, we'd be smiling away. And I think why I felt the need to say it is that what people don't understand in this is that, yes, the candidates are knocking on doors, but you're doing it with 10 or 15 people every day who are doing it before work, after work, maybe taking half a day off, doing it at the weekends, because they believe in the party and they believe in me as a candidate. And then if they hear me on the doorstep say that, integrity and I'm not going to tolerate poor behaviour, I'll do something about it, and then there is poor behaviour and I do nothing about it, that means I'm lying as well. So I've got to be true to myself. I didn't want to have to say it, but someone had to.
So you're effectively saying that your loyalty is to your team there in the area that you're standing, knocking on doors. And actually, these are the faceless people in politics that don't often get the credit that they deserve. And do you feel that the party itself has let those people down, or particularly some members who've made some poor decisions?
Yeah, for a start, yes. I mean, it's sort of the pyramid. The top of the pyramid is Prime Minister, but the base is all the members who are giving up their time because they believe in the Conservative Party. And I believe that the best version of the Conservative Party is the best for the country. Now, I don't think many people would say we have the best version of the Conservative Party right now, which is why I'm standing to have a part of that. And that's why people are out, often getting asked tough questions and how can we trust you after 14 years thrown at them. And they can cope with that. But then when the people they look up to make a really stupid decision, and then the best bit of advice I ever got was own a mistake. So if you've done it, just own it. Don't try and weasel out of it. Just have the balls to get out there and say, boss, I mucked up, I'll take my punishment, rather than try and hide away.
Well, and James, let's be specific here. You haven't said the name, but the Prime Minister took the decision not to suspend the Conservative candidate who was admitted putting a bet on the date of the general election when he was part of that small circle of people close to the Prime Minister who knew the date in advance. So effectively, insider trading. The police protection officer who did the same thing, suspended from his job, but the Prime Minister has not suspended this candidate. In my view, he should have been, and I suspect, in your view, he should have been suspended.
I don't know the ins and outs of who made the decision or what, but I think that in any, if you're talking leadership, you have to make unpopular decisions. And I've referred to a number of times during the campaign of my old rowing coach, East German guy, and he last coached me 20 years ago, but I still phone him up for advice because he'll give me an answer I don't want to know. I talked to him about politics, and he said, why do you want to do it? At the moment, most people like you. Now everyone will hate you. And that is not wrong.
I seem to think we had a similar conversation, James, in 2014 when you stood in the Brexit, in the EU elections. So this isn't something, actually, people might think you've come to this very recently, but you have been involved in politics for 10 years behind the scenes. As I say, I have my head in my hands for most of it.
No, it's true, and it is. It's been strengthened as time's gone. It started off with wanting to get involved with public health policy and preventable healthcare, and then actually, so you talk about Princess Anne and a head injury, is that after I suffered my accident, very quickly people were putting limits on what I wouldn't be able to do, and I realised that so many people in the situation of not having people put limits on them, not having the freedom to succeed. And if I can have any part to play in that through positive influence in Westminster about, not setting limits on people, giving them the avenues to succeed where they want, then that's what I want to do. And for that to be the case, you need to have people with complete integrity and soul.
The thing is, James, I remember saying to you at the time, you are not necessarily the person who's always going to do as you're told. And so they're all laughing in my ear at that. So listen, if you're in a political party, you kind of have to do as you're told, don't you, by the leader of that party. That was always going to be a struggle for you. But you still think you can maintain your integrity as a potential MP whilst swimming against the tide a little?
Well, And that's why knocking on people's doors and they're getting the chance to look me in the eye and say, can I trust that bloke? And so my first loyalty is the people that vote for me. And so I am not going to say yes to something that is not in the benefit of my constituents or the city I'm representing. That's, I would put the constituency ahead of the party, unless it's an issue of national security, but because they're the people who've trusted in me, not just on July the 4th, 24, but every day until the next general election. And that's, if they don't want someone who's like that, then, I shouldn't have been put on the approved list, because I'm not hiding who I am.
That's true.
Can I ask you, James, how frustrating is it for you working hard, flat out every day in your part of the world, when it is the gaffes that are going on in London? It's not just on the betting scandal, the Prime Minister coming back early from the D-Day commemoration. You were part of the military yourself. It seems it's been mistake after mistake. It must be intensely frustrating for you.
It is frustrating, and it's demotivating for everyone else that you're coming out with, and it's very hard to defend. And the pressures that are on everyone, the Prime Minister leading the election campaign, but one of the things that I've always lived by, what I've done, is personal responsibility. And then if there's a debate in the constituency I'm standing in, and that was organised. So all the candidates went, but I made a prior agreement to speak at a charity evening, and so I didn't go. I got loads of grief for not pitching up to the hustings, but I'd already made a commitment to this charity, and actually I felt letting them down was more important than me blowing my own trumpet on stage.
There aren't that many sports people who've gone into politics and made a success of it, although I do think probably from a character point of view, we could do with some more sports people in politics. How hard have you worked, James, in the last 12 months on this?
I think one of the things people don't really understand is that you go through to a seat selection, unless you live in the constituency already. The constituency I'm standing for, I got told I made it through to the SIFT on the Thursday, and then there's sort of part one of the selection from 8 to 3 on the Sunday morning. And then on Sunday afternoon, it went from 3 to 1, by which stage I'm committing to living here within 3 days, because you've got to really understand the people you're representing and their issues affect them every day. And so that's what people do. So I've stopped work and I've thrown everything into it, because that's what people deserve. They're giving you their one vote they've got to know you're not playing at it alongside other stuff. And I'm not the most experienced politician, but what I am is, I don't often take a backward step. I've got a pretty strong moral compass, and if someone mucks up, I'm going to call them out on it, and I expect the same to be done to me.
I can confirm all of that is true. James, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
And James, well done for speaking out, because you'll feel the heat at some point from Tory HQ, I can tell you. Well done.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
All right. Take care, James. Well,
we don't need to do that.
We do need to do this.
We do need to do the full list of candidates, because in Colchester, where James is standing, are Pam Cox, Labour, James Cratnell, Conservative Party, Martin Goss, Lib Dem,
Terence Longstaff, Reform UK, James Rolfe for the Climate Party, and Sarah Nicola Ruth for the Green Party. You don't always think you're going to end up interviewing your ex-husband on TV, do you, Andrew?
I don't have one.
Right, I need a coffee.
An ex-husband.
Not yet. Up next, J.K. Rowling says that Labour have abandoned women. Do you agree? Is it a deal breaker? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Wiltshire police have arrested 2 people after they sprayed orange paint on Stonehenge.
Well, Just Stop Oil have shared a video saying it's to get the incoming government to sign up to a legally binding treaty to phase out fossil fuels by 2030. Of course, Stonehenge famously associated with oil, gas. I think the 5,000-year-old Neolithic Britons were prolific users of the internal combustion engine, and they drilled for lots of oil, so it makes perfect sense, of course.
Yes, we're going to be joined by Jill Taylor, a spokesperson from Just Stop Oil. Jill, thank you very much indeed. What on earth is this all about? This is just criminal activity under the guise of some kind of activism.
No, that's not, that paint will be washed off really easily. So it's not long-lasting damage at all. Unlike the damage that is being done now by the fossil fuel industry, and just keeping burning fossil fuels, putting more CO2 into the atmosphere. You're right, the Neolithic people were not prolific users of fossil fuels. They did not cause the kind of damage that we're causing now. That's all been within since the Industrial Revolution in the 150 years.
So because
this
it's
is when the damage has been done.
So because this stuff can be washed off, ergo there's no issue here. Well, Stonehenge aren't particularly happy about this. They've come out on their social media page and they say Stonehenge is protected by the Ancient Monuments Act and it is a criminal offence to damage the stones. There are also multiple rare lichen species growing on the stones that are also protected. So this isn't good for nature, is it?
I think you're getting things so out of perspective here. What isn't good for nature is the damage we're doing now, and what's not good for nature globally is not good for you, it's not good for me, and it's not good for the people watching this programme.
The People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
(10:22), Beth Turner reading from having just interviewed her ex-husband, James Cracknell. This is GB News.
Do you enjoy that, Andrew?
He's a nice... I met him once. I think he's a very nice bloke, actually. He's a very nice bloke. And I think he was quite right to speak out. And he will feel the heat, because Tory HQ will be furious with him, but he said what he thinks and he shouldn't back off.
You don't employ a guy like James and not know that he's going to be frank and honest, and at times, if that's uncomfortable, then so be it. Yeah. And I genuinely think that the British public want more politicians who are going to be honest. It's what people hear repeatedly, is that they don't trust politicians.
So we have in the studio with us our panel, Piers Pottinger and former Labour MP Luciana Berger. We're going to talk about J.K. Rowling, conversion therapy. You lot are losing the women's vote.
Well, I don't think that's true at all. I mean, I was out knocking on doors yesterday, and there's loads of women.
J.K. Rowling says you are.
Well, she's absolutely entitled to raise her concerns, and Keir Starmer, I think, has been pretty robust in saying that he wants to listen very closely to her and has extended her the opportunity to have a meeting. And I think that's really important, that any concerns that anyone has, irrespective of their gender, can be raised with the leadership of the Labour Party, and that the party should be addressing it.
I think I think the fear. And I do think it's a bit strange that this trans issue gets so much publicity and so much traction that it does, when it actually affects a tiny number of people.
And on that very point, again, I just come back to knocking on doors, as I have done across the country. It hasn't come up once, not once on the doorstep. And I know, we spend an extraordinary amount of time discussing it on these types of programmes, but it is striking that, that it's
the accusation is that Keir Starmer will just go with the flow of whatever is popular to say at the time. If that's a very noisy minority of people, in this case some trans activists, which I do draw a distinction between those who are trans activists and those who are just trans people who want to live a quiet life, that he will be led by a very quiet minority mob.
I don't accept that at all, and it's obviously specifically about what's happening at the moment, that there is a consultation going on into what's taught in our schools, PSHE, sex and relationship education. There is an ongoing consultation. It hasn't concluded. It doesn't do so until the 11th of July. I think he's absolutely right that we should wait for that process to conclude. Anyone, including your viewers, can participate in that, can make their views known. And as we would do with any government consultation, including what might be a new incoming government, depending on what the election result is next Thursday, that those responses should be considered and be amalgamated into any...
But West Street, in the Shadow Health Secretary, said he thinks the process can be cruel. I sort of know because it can take years now to go before a panel. Shouldn't somebody have to be living in the different gender for 2 years before they can make really big decisions? Like and it looks like Labour are going to change that.
No, absolutely, categorically not. That's not the case. Again, I've obviously looked at this issue very, very closely, and Labour's very, very clear that that 2-year process would continue.
Do we get it all out of proportion, Piers?
I think so, to some degree, because it's still the transgender people are still a very small minority. But I do think J.K. Rowling has been remarkable for her stand, and I commend her immensely for standing up to women's rights, for women's rights. And also another sports person, Sharon Davis, of course, who's been superb on this. And to be fair to the Labour Party, Rachel Reeves is meeting J.K. Rowling, I believe, to discuss J.K. Rowling's concerns, which I think is a positive sign. But I fear, as you said, that Keir, when he gets in, will just decide to go with the flow and, as always, listen to the minority rather than look at the majority.
You've got here Hilary Cass, who did that landmark review after the Tavistock Institute, saying she's really concerned. She said, dreadful. She says it's dreadful. To change the law on conversion therapy, how do you have bulletproof legislation? Here's a teacher who says to a 15-year-old child, if you get rid of conversion therapy, no, don't do this. You're wrong. You're wrong. Is she then guilty of persecuting a potential trans person? Will they be prosecuted?
Well, let's be very clear.
That's what Cassie's worried about.
Let's be... Well, and again, I've looked very, very closely at her comments, and let's be very clear what we're talking about when we speak about conversion therapy. It is abuse, and it's been recognised by all parties. And it's actually 6 years ago that the Conservatives promised that they would bring in laws to ban conversion therapy in this country, which is completely distinct from talking therapies, from counselling, from having conversations within families.
But is it?
Yes, absolutely.
But Cassie's worried it isn't.
No.
It's how you draw the law up.
No, I think there's legitimate concerns about making sure that the legislation and any future laws are watertight to make sure that professionals that are counselling experts, that are psychologists, that are involved in talking therapies, for people to have relationships and discussions with their religious leaders and within the family, that all should continue. But the very specific, distinct practice of conversion therapy in this country, which is abuse, which includes things like exorcisms, which includes forced, giving people various medications or things to take. That is completely distinct, medieval. And that is what we should outlaw in this country. And it's frankly very, I'm very, very disappointed that it hasn't happened thus far. And of course, there should be protections within the legislation that comes forward. And we've already had within Parliament a 10-minute rule bill which seeks to do this. And so there's been many conversations. And Hilary Cass is right to voice her concerns. And those concerns must be addressed with any future legislation. And it's a shame that we've had to wait all this time to bring it forward.
OK.
Piers, let's talk about this 5 years of tax rises ahead, no matter who wins the election, according to the IFS.
Yes.
Do you think that's true?
Well, I'm more inclined to believe the Institute for Fiscal Studies than I am either party's manifesto, I'm afraid. And, of course, the worst of all, the Lib Dems and the Greens, which are completely pie-in-the-sky stuff. So we don't need to bother about them.
And reform too.
Reforms stuff.
Well, they were brutal about reform, the IFS.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the thing is that people don't really care about reforms maths. They care about the single issue of immigration more than anything else. And unfortunately, Nigel Farage has made a big mistake, in my view, over Ukraine. And I think he's lost a lot of votes as a result of that. I think he's lost a lot of momentum. I think it was his Ed Miliband bacon sandwich moment, which Starmer hasn't had yet. There's still time. There's still time for Starmer to make a terrible mistake, a la Miliband or Kinnock, but I doubt it'll happen because they're playing such a safe game, trying not to say anything that will upset anyone. I mean, on education at the weekend, Bridget Phillipson, the shadow education secretary, made some ludicrous statements saying they were going to halve violence to women and girls. How on earth can you pluck a figure out of the air like that? How can you say something as absurd as that? She also said earlier that every child in the country will have an expert teacher. Again, ludicrous claims and promises. I don't think the general public at all buy any of these platitudes and nonsensical
Where does that figure come
promises.
from, Luciana, a 50% reduction?
Well, we see some terrible statistics in this country of women not only subject to violence, but women who are murdered in this country by their partners, by their male partners. And we have a responsibility to do something. You'll perhaps have heard Jess Phillips, who every year reads out the names of women who are murdered in this country. So I think it's absolutely right that any government, including a potential Labour government, should set out a pledge to try and do something about it.
Well, what about in London, where the crime rates are soaring, Labour controlled under the dreadful Sadiq Khan, where crime has just gone through the roof. I mean, he's done nothing about preventing women's crime. And, you know, Labour-controlled councils are probably the worst areas, and there's the worst crime.
Labour doesn't control the criminal justice system.
Yeah, but he's the Police and Crime Commissioner for London, and the Metropolitan Police is... The confidence amongst women with the Metropolitan Police is at an all-time low. Sarah Everard,
absolutely.
the way they policed the demonstration where they behaved so terribly to those women demonstrators.
And that's why we've seen a replacement of the Commissioner. I think that was absolutely right, and the Met has got a job to do.
But what about Piers? Where did she get the figure of 50% reduction from?
Well, I think it's about having a target of reducing the number of women that are murdered in this country, and women that are attacked. I mean, I don't have the figures.
Out of thin air?
No, not at all. I mean, what's most striking, I don't have the exact figure in front of me. I know it's less than 10% of women who are raped in this country see a conviction, and that is something that should concern us all. And you know, ultimately, it's not Labour councils that run our court systems and our tribunals and pay our barristers and all that system. We've got a massive issue where these cases, you know, even when they go to the courts, are not even tried. So I think that's ultimately something that needs to be seriously addressed.
OK, thank you both. You'll be back a little while later. Piers Possenger, Luciana Berger. First, though, time for your very latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hot and sunny for many places in the south today, but cloudier, cooler in the north and with a few showers. We start the day with cloud cover across some western and northwestern parts of the UK. Northern Ireland, Western Scotland seeing a few spots of rain. By the afternoon, the weather front responsible for that rain pushes into eastern Scotland, northern England, and could give a few showers, perhaps some longer spells of rain for northeastern parts of Scotland. Otherwise, widespread sunny skies for much of England and Wales, and rising temperatures 30 or 31 Celsius possible in some of the hotter spots. Later Tuesday, some of the heavier rain across northeast Scotland begins to clear, but it could last until the evening, and there'll be always the chance of a shower or two further west across Scotland and in the south, particularly over the southern uplands. It's drying up and clearing up across Northern Ireland, but for northern England, one or two sharp showers possible over the North Pennines, for example. Wales, central and southern England, though, plenty of sunshine. Particularly through the evening, actually, it's likely to become increasingly sunny as the sun starts to go down, and then clear skies overnight as the cloud and rain in the northeast starts to move into the North Sea. Always a chance of the odd shower continuing in one or two spots overnight, however, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder as well. But it's a warm night for many of us, 17 Celsius in some spots by dawn, and so it could be uncomfortable for sleeping. Nevertheless, for most, it's a fine start to Wednesday. Plenty of early morning sunshine. Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, much of England and Wales. One exception, northeast England, eastern Scotland could see some low cloud and some mistiness around the coast. And there's the chance further west of a heavy, thundery downpour later as temperatures rise, and we're looking at highs into the high 20s, low 30s.
the latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M5 in Worcestershire, there's a lane closed southbound after an accident between junctions 4A and 5 from the M42 to Droitwich, causing delays. In Pembrokeshire, Stainton Road in Milford Haven is closed each way for an investigation. In London on the A13, it's down to a single lane westbound at the Lodge Avenue junction at Barking after an accident with queues from Ferry Lane, Raynham. In Hampshire, the A31 is closed eastbound off the A338 from Ringwood to Polner after a lorry caught fire, with delays in both directions towards there. And in Devon, a couple of problems. The A39 is closed each way between Barbrook and Hillsford after a coach caught fire, causing delays. And the A38 is closed westbound at Lee Mill after an accident. Diversions are off and back on via the split roads, with queues back beyond Ivy Bridge, almost back to Bitterford. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Good morning, it's 10:36. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Your headlines. Julian Assange departed the United Kingdom early this morning after agreeing to plead guilty to a single felony count in a US court. The 52-year-old founder of WikiLeaks is due to appear before a federal judge in the Mariana Islands, a US territory in the Western Pacific. He's expected to be sentenced to 5 years, roughly the equivalent of the time he's already served in Britain before returning to Australia. It caps off a long and embittered standoff with the United States that started with his arrest on a Swedish warrant in 2010. The Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, told Parliament the case has gone on for too long.
I've been very clear, as both the Labor leader in opposition but also as Prime Minister, that regardless of the views that people have about Mr Assange's activities, the case has dragged on for too long. There's nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration and we want him brought home to Australia.
The Metropolitan Police has denied leaking the names of Conservatives implicated in the election betting scandal. Reports in The Telegraph suggest the Cabinet Office suspects the involvement of police officers after the identities of those involved were made public. And Sir Keir Starmer will outline Labour's plan to halve knife-related crime over the next 10 years. It will include creating a new cross-government coalition to work on solutions, as well as community hubs involving youth workers, mental health support workers and careers advisors. And a yellow heat health alert is in force across most of the country, with temperatures set to exceed 30 degrees today. Yesterday's high topped 28 degrees in Surrey, making it the hottest day of the year so far. That's almost certain to be surpassed today, with central London expecting some of the hottest conditions. But forecasters are warning it won't last long, with showers and possibly thunderstorms predicted later tomorrow. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2694 and 1.1830 euros. The price of gold is £1,835 and 91 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,267 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And she did.
10:39. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Embassy.
Some breaking news now relating to the betting scandal. And Tom Harwood has the latest. What's happened, Tom?
I've just received word from Conservative campaign headquarters that 2 candidates caught up in this betting scandal have had their support removed by the Conservative Party. This means the party will no longer be campaigning for them, producing literature for them, knocking on doors for them. But of course, because nominations closed several weeks ago, their names will still appear on the ballot paper in their constituencies next to the Conservative Party brand. It's a similar situation to what happened in George Galloway's seat in that by-election where the Labour Party candidate had the support withdrawn and obviously there were electoral consequences there, but ultimately the names can't be taken off the ballot paper. I'll just read you the statement which I've been sent. As a result of ongoing internal inquiries, we have concluded that we can no longer support Craig Williams or Laura Saunders as parliamentary candidates at the forthcoming general election. We have checked with the Gambling Commission that this decision does not compromise the investigation that they are conducting, which is rightly independent and ongoing. Now, this is a shift from what the Conservatives were saying up until today. For the last week, they were saying, we can't touch this, we can't comment upon this, because that would compromise the independence of the investigation, which a lot of journalists were pointing out. It's hard to see how it would compromise the independence of that investigation. It seems now that CCHQ, the Conservative campaign headquarters, agrees.
Let's be clear, Craig Williams, who was the candidate in Montgomeryshire, admitted placing a bet of £100 at 5 to 1 on the date of the general election. He was the Prime Minister's parliamentary private secretary, which means effectively he was his bag carrier. With him at virtually every meeting, would be privy to all the big decisions, whether it's a foreign decision. So he knew he had privileged inside information, insider trading, bang to rights. He should have been suspended on the spot.
It does seem that this decision was inevitable and the pressure was growing. More and more candidates were simply baffled that it's took this long, that there wasn't hard and fast action against it. And in some ways, it sort of has this similar ring to what happened with Partygate. After all, this is not Rishi Sunak placing bets. This isn't people in the cabinet. It's that sort of rung below. It's the people that are tangentially involved. Craig Williams, of course, this sort of bridge between Parliament and the Prime Minister.
But very lowly in terms of not even a minister.
Right, it's what's known as a PPS, an unpaid role. But of course, an MP until dissolution as well. But it does seem that this is a decision that was inevitable, although baffling that it took this long to arrive.
And we were talking to James Cracknell just a few moments ago, who described what was happening. Well, he used the four-letter word, and he was outraged that the candidate, particularly Williams, was still there. Without saying so specifically, he said if that had been part of an Olympic team, he'd been thrown out.
And it's all just so silly because these MPs earn around £90,000 a year. 100 quid on a bet. I mean, really, is it worth throwing away a very high-paid job, respect, all the rest of it, for 100 quid of a flutter? It just is baffling, and I think that's what the reaction for most people when they hear this is.
No judgment, but the sense of entitlement that they could. And Michael Gove, didn't he say in that interview at the weekend, he said it has echoes of Partygate because, well, we'll do things differently to how the rest of the country behave. We can do it differently because we can.
And just how silly it all is. That's the other parallel, I think.
So the thing, Tom, so just for people, these people will still stand as candidates?
Yes, they can't be removed because the ballot papers have been printed.
Technically, one of them could win.
That's right. So their election material is already printed. It says Conservative on it. That's not going to change now. They're just not getting what? Like, what's the difference for them in the run-up to with just over a week to go?
So candidates, of course, get national mail-outs from the central party. They have their campaigners who will knock on doors for them, deliver leaflets, deliver that,
work for
get out the vote organisation. They will be told not to by the Conservative Party. If anyone does campaign for either Craig Williams or Laura Saunders, then they will be doing that in a personal capacity.
Which they may choose to do.
Some of them might choose to do that. I doubt many of them will, and they will be sort of redeployed.
Well, there's a parallel in Islington North, of course, where Jeremy Corbyn is standing as a candidate, independent, and the chairman of the local Labour Party was caught campaigning for him, hiding behind a garden wall.
That's because there are strict rules. If you campaign for a different political party, a different candidate against the Labour candidate, you'll be removed from the party.
So-and-so, guys, I just think politics is completely
hiding behind
bonkers,
a
don't
garden
you?
wall. We found you. It's behind you. So she'll be at the party.
Right, let us know your thoughts this morning. Get involved, gbnews.com/your say. But we're now going to GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. How many days do you look at politics, Catherine, and think it's completely bonkers when you hear scenarios like this? Could the Prime Minister have handled it differently?
Yeah.
Well, yes, I think he could have handled it differently. And to be honest, I'm not remotely surprised that these two candidates have been suspended. I think a lot of people, though, will be wondering what took the Prime Minister so long to do this, because it's clearly massively politically damaging, isn't it? And it's 2 weeks since Craig Williams, first emerged that he'd put a bet, just a couple of days before the election was announced. He was, of course, a private secretary to Rishi Sunak. He was in a privileged position, in a position to have inside information. He admitted it and he apologised, but he was, up until right now, still the Conservative Party candidate for Montgomeryshire. So quite astonishing, really. And I was in North Wales last Friday with the Prime Minister when they were launching their Conservative manifesto for Wales. In the Q&A afterwards, I stood up and I asked for GB News why he didn't just suspend the candidates because, Craig Williams had admitted it, and investigation or no investigation, they've wasted a lot of political capital that they frankly don't have. Now, I was heckled for asking that question, but I just wanted to understand why. And afterwards on the bus, journalists, we went round and round with the Prime Minister trying to get to the bottom of why he didn't just suspend them. So sure, it's happened now, but I think a huge amount of damage has been done because we've heard it from all sides. But even, as you say, Michael Gove comparing it to Partygate, James Cracknell just before, plenty of voices on the Conservatives' own side saying how dreadful this is. So sure, the Prime Minister has acted. I think that will be welcomed. The question is, why didn't do it sooner?
OK. Thank you very much, Catherine. Catherine Forster there. A lot of you at home getting in touch to say quite how warm it is out there today. One of you saying you're making a jug of Pimm's. Would we like to join them?
Bit early.
Well, oh yeah, it is only 10 to 11.
I haven't had a digestive
tell me
biscuit
about
yet.
me. That quite fancied it. Did anybody sleep? Did you sleep last night, Tom? How hot was it?
It was hot last night.
It was boiling.
It was
I found
boiling.
it quite hard to sleep for the last week because actually it's been muggy.
It's very muggy.
For the last few days.
Yeah,
but today was the real hot.
A large vodka and soda helps, Tom.
Noted.
Not at 10:47 in the morning, though. Right, up next, we're going to be hearing from you because this is Britain's Newsroom, the People's Channel, only on GB News.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
We're very lucky to have an heir to the throne who is dutiful, loves his family, and he still takes all the children to school in the morning. And you can't really hope for anything more than that, can you? And he's behaved with such dignity. He must be so worried about his father and his lovely wife.
I wonder what the royals are going to do if the next generation of people aren't armed forces, if they don't join the army or the navy or the air force or whatever.
This is very interesting because Prince William doesn't necessarily want little George to do that. He doesn't feel it's necessary. But it's such a stamp on the royal family, isn't it? And with all the costumes, and they're the head of the army. And so what would they do without that? I find that very difficult. I think it's the same with religion, actually, because he's not religious, William. He does go once or twice a year, but he hasn't got the same passion about religion that King Charles does. And I think it's very difficult. I think it'll be maybe a very changed royal family.
Indeed, yeah. We don't know yet who's going to be attending Royal Ascot, but we suspect at the very least the Queen, probably the King and Queen, and maybe even the Prince of Wales as well.
You can't keep the Queen away from horses. I mean, she absolutely loves them. She used to ride them non-stop when she was little. And fascinatingly, her mother never bothered about it because they weren't mobiles then, and she would go off riding for hours and sleep in a field.
Life. What an incredible
and then
childhood.
come back the next day. She never worried about her. She thought she was sensible. She loves animals, dogs and horses. That's one of the things she had very much in common with the late Queen.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
10:50.
Yeah.
Britain's Newsroom on GB News with our lovely shiny new studio this morning.
I've got the wrong colour jacket on, apparently.
No, I think you look all right. You just the background,
Darker
and your
colours,
jacket.
probably.
You got to turn on the radio. You got to, if you're listening on the radio, you need to look on the telly now.
I was trying to be summary, but you can be summary with different colours. Now, as you know, thank you very much in the gallery. Now, throughout the election campaign, we've been hearing from people across the UK about what really matters to them in this election.
So today we are talking to Anastasia Tempest from Leeds. Good morning, Anastasia. Thank you so much.
Morning, Beverly and Andrew.
Morning. Right, what's playing on your mind with just over a week until the election?
An awful lot is actually playing on my mind. I used to be a member of the used to be a member of the Labour Party, and now I just feel that I don't know who to vote for. I have three concerns. The NHS, that's an absolute nightmare. It needs a complete overhaul. Social care has not even had a mention. And as for crime, that just needs to be taken more seriously. And what I'm absolutely fed up by is people with disabilities just don't, there's a lot to be fed up by, but people with disabilities just don't get thought of when it comes to the manifesto, and it's really, really frustrating. It's such an important sector of society, people with disabilities.
Anastasia,
and
do you
there's hardly any voice.
Yeah, do you have a disability, Anastasia, or do you know
I
people
do.
who have?
Yes, it's sorry, I should have mentioned cerebral palsy. And of course you have mild to very, very severe, but you know, I don't feel I've got a voice, and I think it's very important not to waste the vote though. But I'm oscillating. I mean, I've always been oscillating between who do I vote for. I've always been very interested in politics, but today I just wonder why. Now, when it comes to the NHS, in 2023 there was some kind of system set up, and I actually wrote it down because I wanted to get the exact wording correct. Digital mutual aid system, which basically means if you've got a serious health condition, which I have, and I don't mean CP, cerebral palsy, CP for short, cerebral palsy. I've got a gastroenterology problem, and I've been on a waiting list for over 4 years now. A couple of weeks ago, I actually got a phone call, and I got told that I have to wait another 12 months. And I'm losing, to coin a phrase, I'm losing the will to live. I mean, the country hasn't just, it's not falling apart. It's already fallen apart. And I think what we need, I mean, nobody's going to take notice of me. I was invited to
We
Downing
are,
Street one year.
Anastasia,
Yeah.
we're taking notice of you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate the fact that you've given me a voice, because even, you know, my, no pun intended, but even if you haven't got a leg to stand on, it's more difficult.
It really is. Well, Anastasia, you said, you know, you don't feel heard. We've heard you, and we are grateful for your time this morning. Thank you so much. Here's the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hot and sunny for many places in the south today, but cloudier, cooler in the north and with a few showers. We start the day with cloud cover across some western and northwestern parts of the UK. Northern Ireland, Western Scotland seeing a few spots of rain. By the afternoon, the weather front responsible for that rain pushes into eastern Scotland, northern England, and could give a few showers, perhaps some longer spells of rain for northeastern parts of Scotland. Otherwise, widespread sunny skies for much of England and Wales, and rising temperatures 30 or 31 Celsius possible in some of the hotter spots. Later Tuesday, some of the heavier rain across northeast Scotland begins to clear, but it could last until the evening, and there'll be always the chance of a shower or two further west across Scotland and in the south, particularly over the southern uplands. It's drying up and clearing up across Northern Ireland, but for northern England, one or two sharp showers possible over the North Pennines, for example. Wales, central and southern England, though, plenty of sunshine. Particularly through the evening, actually, it's likely to become increasingly sunny as the sun starts to go down, and then clear skies overnight as the cloud and rain in the northeast starts to move into the North Sea. Always a chance of the odd shower continuing in one or two spots overnight, however, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder as well. But it's a warm night for many of us, 17 Celsius in some spots by dawn, and so it could be uncomfortable for sleeping. Nevertheless, for most, it's a fine start to Wednesday. Plenty of early morning sunshine. Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, much of England and Wales. One exception, northeast England, eastern Scotland could see some low cloud and some mistiness around the coast. And there's the chance further west of a heavy, thundery downpour later as temperatures rise, and we're looking at highs into the high 20s, low 30s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big this summer. First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have said stump.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Camilla Tominey. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Please.
It's 11 o'clock on Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
And we're live across the United Kingdom. And coming up, breaking news, the Tories have finally withdrawn support for those candidates, Laura Sanders and Craig Williams, over the row over bets placed on the date of the general election.
Princess Anne is in hospital for a third day after being injured by a horse. Meanwhile, we're eagerly awaiting the Japanese state visit, and our man Cameron Walker is outside Buckingham Palace.
The King keeping calm and carrying on today. Meanwhile, he's keeping on a close eye on the condition of his sister, the Princess Royal, who remains in hospital today.
A heatwave, at last! A yellow heat health alert is in place across most of England, with temperatures expected to reach up to 31 degrees centigrade.
Strange footage of people and dogs in a swimming pool. Right, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has walked free from Belmarsh prison after agreeing to an American plea deal.
What is the mindset in the Downing Street? Thinks, well, hang on to these candidates for a week, cause maximum damage to our campaign, and then when the cacophony of protests and noise becomes deafening, OK, we'll push them under a bus.
Do you know what? I still can't think about that. Stop thinking about that footage I've just seen of an outdoor swimming pool with human beings and dogs swimming in it at the same time. I'm going to try and find out for you at home where that is. I can't think of anything worse than going swimming in a pool with dogs.
We want to know where it is, so we never go in the same pool.
I love an outdoor swim, not with a Labrador. gbnews.com/your say to tell us your thoughts. If you can shed any light on that footage, I'd love to know. First, though, here's your news with Sophia.
Bev, thank you. Good morning from the GB Newsroom at 1 minute past 11. Your top story this hour. Julian Assange departed the United Kingdom early this morning after agreeing to plead guilty to a single felony count in a US court. The 52-year-old founder of WikiLeaks is due to appear before a federal judge in the Mariana Islands, a US territory in the Western Pacific. He's expected to be sentenced to 5 years, roughly the equivalent of the time he's already served in Britain. The Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, told Parliament the case has gone on for too long.
I've been very clear, as both the Labor leader in opposition but also as Prime Minister, that regardless of the views that people have about Mr Assange's activities, the case has dragged on for too long. There's nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration, and we want him brought home to Australia.
Assange's release caps off a long and bitter standoff with the United States that started with his arrest on a Swedish warrant in 2010. He's since become a divisive symbol, celebrated by some as crusader for truth, but criticised by others who view him as a threat to national security. Through WikiLeaks, Assange has revealed state secrets related to US activities in Iraq and even published stolen emails from the US Democratic Party, which damaged Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. In other news, Labour says reducing knife crime is not a problem for a single government department, as it pledges to crack down on the problem. The party's plan will include creating a new cross-government coalition to work on solutions, as well as community hubs involving youth workers, mental health support workers and career advisors. Sir Keir Starmer says cracking down on knife crime is a moral mission.
I was the Chief Prosecutor for 5 years, and therefore I prosecuted many cases involving the use of knives, and I've made it my personal mission to deal with this. It is a moral mission so far as I'm concerned. It isn't a question of urban versus rural. In fact, I think there's more knife crime, sadly, in rural areas, or at least it's going up more quickly. And I think it's not fair on the families we've been hearing from this morning to simply point the finger to somebody else. This is something which a government needs to take responsibility for. I will take responsibility for, on a cross-party basis, to make the change that we need.
Meanwhile, the Metropolitan Police has denied leaking the names of Conservatives implicated in the election betting scandal. Reports in The Telegraph suggest the Cabinet Office suspected the involvement of police officers after the identities of those involved were made public. The newspaper also reports that a further 5 police officers are under investigation by the Gambling Commission. It comes after the Conservative Party confirmed it can no longer support candidates Craig Williams and Laura Saunders, who are accused of betting on the timing of the election. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak has criticised Sir Keir Starmer's proposals to curb migration, saying it would lead to thousands more people coming to the UK. The Prime Minister claimed Labour would make the UK a soft-touch illegal migration capital of the world. But the opposition says that instead of a gimmick, Labour will get a grip on the issue. It comes as the number of small boat migrants who have crossed the Channel hit a new record high of 12,901. Meanwhile, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage says nothing will change until we leave the European Court of Human Rights.
With this lot behind me, waiting for a Labour government, were they hell? As over 128,000 people have come, 90% of them young men, many coming from war zones, from areas plagued by terrorism, gang crime. And my hunch is that he had to call the election early because he'd promised planes would go to Rwanda in July. He told us people were in detention already, waiting to go. Do you know every single one of those people has been released on bail, and at least half have absconded already. There were no boats going to Rwanda. We will not solve this problem until we leave the European Court of Human Rights.
And a yellow heat health alert is in force across most of the country, with temperatures set to exceed 30 degrees today. Yesterday's high topped 28 degrees in Surrey, making it the hottest day of the year so far. That's almost certain to be surpassed today, with central London expecting some of the hottest conditions. The RNLI is urging people to take care as more people head to coastal and beach areas. But forecasters are warning the heat won't last long, with showers and possibly thunderstorms predicted later tomorrow. Meteorologist Tamsin Green says Britain isn't well prepared for hot weather. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Andrew and Bev.
Hello and welcome. Britain's Newsroom on GB News. The time is 11:07. Lots of you getting in touch, of course.
Absolutely. Bob the Builder has said Starmer was a barrister. For that reason alone, he says I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. And then somebody has responded to that and said, worse than that, he was a human rights barrister. This is the beauty of this website, you see. You can talk to each other. Old bloke in the corner has said my swimming pool in my flat is used on a regular basis for the local dogs as well. This is because of the extraordinary footage we just watched.
Nice to have a swimming pool in your flat.
Wouldn't it be? Yes, I think he's joking. But Peter says I've swum with dogs. I was on a beach. I'm not going to be repeating that. I didn't get to the end of that before I read it. And Victoria said how wonderful swimming with the dogs. When I lived in South Africa, I've swum with my ex-boyfriend's Labrador. She jumped in the swimming pool with me and we swam alone together. It was awesome. We've had 3 dogs. One of them would not go in, but the others used to think it was a big drinking bowl. Bev, you should try it sometime. I love swimming, but I'm scared of dogs. I've said this before. I'm really scared of all dogs. I'm a complete wuss. So the idea of being in a pool with a dog is not my idea. But it's because of the heat. Because there's this health heat warning.
But don't children wee in pools all the time?
Oh, this took a turn I wasn't expecting. Well, hopefully not, unless they're very little. You'd like to think you raise your children not to win in the pool. But, yeah, let us know how you're keeping cool today.
Yeah, first day of the heatwave, and it's going to last till Wednesday or Thursday. Now, politically, Jonathan Ashworth, he's Labour's shadow paymaster general, has responded, of course he has, to the Tories finally withdrawing support for the betting round candidates, 2 of them. He said...
It is yet another example of Rishi Sunak's staggeringly weak leadership, that it's taken him nearly 2 weeks to see what was obvious to everybody else.
Rishi Sunak now needs to come clean with voters across the country and tell them exactly how many of his Conservatives are implicated and who they are.
Now, our inbox, Andrew, from viewers is saying that they're not really bothered about this issue, that they feel that there are more important things.
I hear that, but I'm told, talking to candidates, and I spoke to a few yesterday, that this is an issue that's really cut through on the doorstep.
Really?
People would just get it. They think, oh, blimey, they're in privileged information and they're making money out of it.
It sort of smacks of this idea that Conservatives are filling suitcases full of cash before they run out the door, doesn't it? That's what it looks a little bit like. But I think it is important to point out that, as Tom was saying, this isn't a high-ranking MP.
Nobody's heard of him.
He made 500 quid on a bet. I mean, it's a bit poxy, isn't it, to be honest?
You know, if I was going to risk my entire career, I wouldn't be putting £100 on. I'd be getting a bank loan and putting £150,000 on. So at least I'd have a big wad of cash.
Yeah.
But, you know...
Will you let me know if you do that?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, even if they just put a bet on for an election in July, that would have got them off the hook. I guess it's the idea that it was specifically on the day, but you didn't have to be Mystic Meg to work out that it might be the 4th of July.
Because what they haven't realised is that a mechanism kicks in if there's a number of bets which win more than £199 on a certain day, certain sort of time, particularly when it's an issue like politics, and they investigated it. Didn't take long.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah, they could have just dealt with it very, very quickly, couldn't they?
Yeah.
But they didn't, and it's backfired again.
Yeah. Now, Princess Anne, Princess Royal, she is, I have to say, probably my favourite role. She's suffering from temporary memory loss after a horse-riding accident where we think the horse kicked her while she was walking around looking at the horses on her estate, Gatcombe Park in Gloucestershire.
And because of this, she won't be able to greet the Emperor and Empress of Japan when they attend a state visit later today, hosted by the King.
And, of course, this is the King's... I think it's the first state visit he's hosted here, so this is a big moment, and, of course, state visits are done at the behest of the government because they're trying to improve relations diplomatically, economically and politically. So let's get the latest on all of this from our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker from Buckingham Palace. Cameron, I've, over the years, come across Princess Anne and had 1 or 2 conversations with her, which haven't always been easy. She's not always easy with reporters, but I can tell you she'll be pretty frustrated to be bedridden and told she's got to stay bedridden for a few days because she's a real doer and needs to get on with it. But concussion can be serious, and she is 73.
Yeah, she's pretty matter-of-fact, isn't she, Andrew? And I think perhaps she takes after her late father, Prince Philip, who is also very matter-of-fact as well. But, of course, the Princess has now spent her second night in hospital following that injury on Sunday evening. We believe involved a horse. She was either kicked or head-butted by it, according to medical staff, who say her injuries were consistent with impact of those 2 parts of a horse. Buckingham Palace confirming she's suffering from concussion, as you say, but has minor injuries. I understand she is awake and she is comfortable in hospital in Bristol. Telegraph reporting, as you say, that she's suffering from temporary memory loss. Now, I do know that an air ambulance was dispatched on Sunday evening when emergency services were called. Her husband, Tim Lawrence, and her son and daughter, Zara and Peter, were on the estate at the time, but she was transferred by road to hospital, suggesting that the injuries aren't too serious. Buckingham Palace seems to be insisting that she will seem to make a full recovery at some point. But, of course, and she is a keen horsewoman. She rode him. She competed in the 1976 Montreal Olympics. The King is being kept closely informed, but his focus today is very much on the state visits. But the Princess Royal will be missing the state banquet tonight, which perhaps exposes once again this slimmed-down monarchy, or the fragility of the slimmed-down monarchy. Because I also understand the Princess of Wales is not going to be attending any part of the ceremonial events today. So the King will be at Horse Guards Parade later to greet the Emperor and Empress of Japan. Prince William will be picking them up from their hotel. There's going to be a guard of honour provided by the Welsh Guards. They'll then process up here to Buckingham Palace from Horse Guards Parade in carriages. They'll then view some items from the Royal Collection Trust, 400 years of soft diplomatic relations between the British royal family and the Japanese emperor and empresses. Because of a general election, we thought this might not actually happen. It's already been postponed once before because of the coronavirus pandemic, but all the political elements have been taken out. So there's no meeting in Downing Street. There's no speech by the Emperor of Japan within Westminster Hall in front of MPs, because of course there aren't any MPs at the moment. A foreign minister for Japan, a foreign official I should say, says the visit is not political, but it's about forging friendly relations across generations, and that's what King Charles and the monarchy is all about, that power of soft diplomacy. But a bit of a headache because you're losing all the stars, as it were. We've lost Princess Anne, we've lost the Princess of Wales temporarily, so it's going to be the King, the Queen, Prince William, and we'll have to see what other minor royals perhaps turn up, because they have been kind of called upon in recent months to carry out some kind of engagement, such as hosting a garden party or being in the carriage procession at Ascot last week.
Just finally, Cameron, do we know any more about what happened at Gatcombe Park? Because we know that she likes each night, whether she's been out at an official visit, to wander around chatting to the horses, seeing the horses, because she loves horses. Was she on her own, and was she potentially on her own for some time before she was found, if she was knocked unconscious?
Yeah, so Gatcombe Park is the Gloucestershire home of the Princess Royal. I understand she wasn't riding her horse at the time, but as you say, she was walking along. And it appears unclear exactly what happened, because medical staff are the ones saying that her injuries are consistent with an impact from a horse's head or legs, which suggests the princess herself can't tell you herself what happened to her. We don't know if she was alone or if she was with people, but we do know that Tim Lawrence, her husband, Peter Phillips and Zara Tyndall, her son and daughter, were both on the estate at the time. And again, details remaining very unclear as to who actually raised the alarm, whether she was found within the grounds of Gatcombe Park or if she was with somebody who managed to call the ambulance.
OK. Right. Thank you, Cameron. I tell you what, the conspiracy theorists are going to go into overdrive about the fact that she got hit on the head on her own and she can't remember what happened.
I know. And apparently an air ambulance was called too. And
poor Princess Anne.
Yeah.
Horses are unpredictable.
They are, but she knows all about them. You know, her father famously said about Princess Anne, unless it smells of hay or farts, she's not interested.
What does that say about her husband?
Horses. All she's interested in.
They said it was the injury might have been.
Could have been with a horse's head.
Horse's head.
Which is that's quite a weapon.
They can sort of whack on side, or maybe she's been kicked and fallen over and banged her head. Yeah. We don't know. We just hope she's OK.
We wish her well.
She's a lot of our favourite royals.
She is in bed and she's reading. I bet you she's not reading about herself in the papers.
I think you'll find she's watching GB News, Andrew Pearce. I'm sure she is. Good morning.
Do you remember me, Mum? Met a couple of weeks ago at the Palace, and you said, why am I talking to somebody like you? It occurred to me. She didn't put it quite like that, was what she meant. That's why we love her.
Right, up next, find out which Secretary of State has thrown her hat into the ring for the top job as Prime Minister. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The University of Cambridge has told students to stop flirting with staff under a new policy banning sexual relationships with professors. The new rules, which come into force next month, beginning of July, include a warning against behaviour that could be interpreted as flirtatious. University staff have been told they must report any behaviour that could constitute a student making advances towards a personal, particularly intimate relationship with them. If you're a tutor, how do you interpret what is flirting and what is just sort of like having a bit of banter?
In fact, you've got some
very nice trousers, by the way.
Thank you.
I see.
You see, you didn't even recognise.
Oh, I didn't.
Very well.
He's got
I think I'm blushing now. I'm blushing.
So, what's flirting? What's me complimenting your very well-fitting trousers? Yes.
Well, there is a line, because obviously when you're 18 and you go to university, it might be the first time you're away from home. It might be the first time that you're open to maybe a bit of a nightlife, social activity, drinking and all the rest of it. On the flip side, I know a couple who, the pupil ended up dating their professor, and they've been together for about sort of 15 years now. So I used to go after lectures with my professor and the whole seminar. We used to go to the pub afterwards, and I became very good friends with, she was a mature student. She was on the very, very far left of political. You wondered where that was going for a second, didn't you?
We're both reading a huge sigh of relief.
Very quick for you, Joe. We're running out of very nice trousers as well. We're running
Thank you,
out of
not
time.
snug as Charlie. I think you've got to have some rules in place that there's no abuse of power. Policing it's difficult. We ought to be in a position where you can say, get off, back off, or, banter's fine. Actually, I hate that word. I hate it almost as much as woke. Go on, email in.
Thank you very much. I'm flirting with both.
The People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
11:20, Britain's Newsroom with GB News. Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner. The panel are back. Luciana Berger, the former Labour MP, and our favourite political strategist, Piers Posher. Piers, before we get into other things, you know more about horses than anybody I know, not least because you gave me 2 winners and a place at Ascot on Saturday, so I'm in the money. Of course, as you know, I don't put very much. The Princess Royal was concussed or knocked unconscious, I think. What would you think might have happened?
It's hard to tell, but horses... I've been hit by the head of a horse, and it's a very... the head is a very heavy... much heavier than a human head.
Sure.
And if it swings round with some force and hits the skull in the right place, it can be very damaging. And of course, the human skull is quite thin compared to a horse's head hitting you with some force. A leg, even worse. It can kill you. And, Princess Anne's no youngster, and I'm afraid, horses are dangerous animals, or can be.
She'd know all that, of course.
Yeah, you
she
think
would
with
know
her
that,
experience,
yes.
I've got
But you can never tell with a horse what spooks them, what frightens them.
Yeah.
It can be, for example, once I was in a paddock where someone's umbrella was brightly coloured and it threw the horse completely and it went nuts. So you really have to be careful around horses, particularly thoroughbreds, which are very highly strung.
We saw a few weeks ago with those horses that went on the rampage in central London because they'd been spooked by a builder.
Absolutely, but it doesn't take much, but also it may have just been irritated by something and kicked out, and accident. It would have been not deliberate by any means. It would have just been something that sounds like an unfortunate accident, but. The force with which it could have happened is, it's severe.
The worry is that she was knocked out, doesn't remember what happened, and was on her own for we don't know how long until she was found.
Absolutely. We just hope she's going to make a swift recovery.
Yeah.
They need
she knows far more about horses than I do, and she's been a terrific patron of the racing welfare, with which I used to sit on the board of it as a trustee, and she was a terrific leader of that, and we can only wish her the very best.
Did you meet her as an MP?
I haven't met her, no. I met many other of the royal family.
What was your favourite?
Well, I think meeting the Queen on a number of occasions. I think that would probably be...
Did you curtsy?
I did, yes, absolutely, yeah.
When I met Princess Anne just a couple of weeks ago, I completely forgot to bow. I know you don't have to, but it's just such It's not what you... It didn't occur to me. And my partner was saying next
Nod
to me...
of the head.
He, of course, bowed, making me feel foolish. And I thought, why didn't I do that?
There's helpful instructions to tell you what to do. So.
I'd completely forgot.
Yeah.
I don't think she cared.
Right, let's talk about Sunak versus Starmer in the latest pre-election grilling, and illegal immigration stopping the boats came up yet again. Luciana, who came out on top in your opinion on this?
Well, I don't think... I think it's very difficult for anyone to take Sunak seriously on this issue when just this week we've seen record levels of people crossing the channel in small boats. We've now surpassed the record that was made in 2022. It's close to 13,000 people, and this is people that are being exploited at the hands of these horrific trafficking gangs that are charging thousands and thousands of pounds, and yet these numbers have only sought to increase when we were told that they would decrease. And it seems like the Prime Minister has been obsessed by this plan to send 300 people to Rwanda, all while we've seen a 4 times increase in the number of people coming across in small boats. So it is a very serious issue, and people are losing their lives over it.
Do you think it's with Sunak saying that the illegal immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers are queuing up at the moment in France, just waiting for 9 days' time when they're going to then all leap on the boats because they know that Keir Starmer is going to be much more relaxed on this issue?
Oh, I think Rishi Sunak will do anything possible to deflect away from his own record on this and the Conservative government's record of the last 14 years. I think it's absolute nonsense. I think Labour set out a pretty comprehensive plan about how it wants to create a border security control using anti-terrorist powers that we have in this country, particularly to smash these criminal gangs which are at the heart of what we are seeing in terms of this increase in people that are coming across the channel, and to also make sure we've got people in place to process these applications. I mean, the numbers of application processing is abysmal. We've seen a downgrading in terms of the number of people that are doing these jobs, like how they're qualified or not, as the case may be, to actually do the role, and making sure that they're actually, we've got the people to do the job.
I'm afraid this... First of all, there are going to be more people coming because the weather's better and the sea is calmer, so they're coming over. And this nonsense that Starmer spouts about smashing criminal gangs, it sounds wonderful. But given that they're not in this country, they don't originate here, how on earth is he going to stop them? Because the French, who singularly seem to let these people come across. Don't forget, they know who these people are. We've seen endless documentaries of if a BBC reporter or a GBNews reporter can find these gang leaders in France, and the French police are there doing nothing. We've seen endless footage of them standing by when the dinghies go over. I mean, it's all very well saying we're going to strengthen border control, we're going to do this. Well, again, these are vague, empty promises that have no chance of success.
If it was that easy, wouldn't the Tories have done it?
Sorry?
If it was that easy, wouldn't the Tories have done it?
Well, of course. I mean, the fact is there is a border control, there is an anti-terrorist force. All these people are trying to do this. What is Labour going to wave some magic wand and suddenly make them all succeed? I don't understand how on earth they're going to do this.
I mean, I don't accept that. I don't accept that the government has done everything it can and should have done to contend with this issue, for lots of different reasons. But first of all, about smashing the criminal gangs. They are criminal gangs, and they should be smashed for the exploitation that they impact on so many people. Using specialist investigators can and should and would make a difference. We do not have them in this country. As I said, we've downgraded the very people that are processing applications. We haven't got those specialist investigators. I think that would make a significant difference. I think also having a specific border control would make a difference also. We don't have that at this moment in time. These are specific measures which the government hasn't brought forward. It feels like we've got this vanity plan of sending people to Rwanda, which only impacts on a very few proportion, a very few number of these 300 people, when in fact there's a much greater challenge. There's only 13,000 people that have crossed the channel over the course of the last 6 months.
I don't understand this not having specific border control. We have border control, and it's pretty specific.
It's not a border security command. It isn't. That is a distinction.
And what does that mean?
Well, in terms of using anti-terrorist powers, we're not using anti-terrorist powers at this moment.
How do you know?
Well, because that isn't being used at this time.
Well, you don't know that because a lot of anti-terrorist work is done secretly and not for public consumption. And, of course, where anti-terrorist powers are needed, they're used. Are you saying all these people coming over in boats are terrorists?
No, but I've also listened very closely to the government, and they haven't. No one has said that that isn't the case. And the very people in charge of this country haven't said that what Labour's setting out can't be done. So I think if it wasn't true, then they would have a problem with it, and we would have heard about it.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people who do know about this think it's pie in the sky stuff, like nearly all of the Labour manifesto.
Let's talk about Kemi Badenoch, who has suggested I think in an after-dinner speech that she might have ambitions of leading the Conservative Party after the election, Piers.
Can I just
it'll be a very...
She doesn't. She not might. She does. She has them. She has those ambitions.
Yes, I'm sure.
Not for debate.
I'm sure she does.
And she might be one of the few left standing because
well, exactly. It'll be a very small party. Yes, it'll be. They won't need to hire big rooms. No, I mean, well, if she wants to, I'm sure she'll have some supporters. Very few, but she'll have some. In my view, we need a complete clear out of this lot because they failed singularly, and they're causing the very near total destruction of the party, for which they should not be forgiven. And I think we need a fresh approach. We need fresh leadership from someone who's going to inspire the electorate, be a strong and tough leader. And as a betting man, I would bet on David Frost, Lord Frost, who is a superb man of real substance, a man of total integrity, and someone who has proven that he can negotiate internationally.
He did the Brexit deal for
absolutely,
Boris Johnson.
and he's a man that would be fine. I'm sorry, Kemi Badenoch's just one of this lot who failed miserably, dug their own hole. They keep digging it deeper. I'm afraid I don't personally think that the members will want to have more of the same.
Interesting.
I mean, it's interesting that we're having this conversation. We haven't yet had the election. Obviously, the election is taking place next Thursday, and it requires people to vote if they want change and they want to see an end of the chaos of the last 14 years. I mean, the conversation about who potentially might be a future leader within the Conservative Party is interesting. I think on the point about David Frost, I mean, he would have to be an MP, and I understand he was prevented from standing as the parliamentary candidate by the Conservative Party. That's not my business, that's the Conservative Party's business. I think what is very interesting is that Nigel Farage was asked last week on countless occasions if after the election the Conservatives are not successful, would he be putting himself forward to be leader of the Conservative Party? And he evaded that question on at least 4 occasions. It hasn't got that much attention, but I think it's a very serious question, which the public deserves to know. Actually, is he using this vehicle of reform with the actual intention of trying to take over and lead the Conservative Party?
How much would Labour fear a Farage-led Conservative Party? Possibly with Boris Johnson in the ranks?
I mean, you'd have to see who was left in terms of actually, the makeup and the different personalities and people. I mean, there's lots of people that are either ruling themselves in, ruling themselves out. But I do think for someone who professes to be a man of the people and wants to be very open, he's not honest when it comes to this kind of very significant question about what his intentions are and which party he expects to be a part of.
And he has talked about a realignment of the right, hasn't he?
Yes, well, there will be a realignment of the right. And I mean, it's happening not just in this country, but all over the world. And particularly in France, obviously, where it does look that the National Rally will win. And that is not good news for Starmer, who wants to get closer to Europe, because the National Rally will want to keep him at arm's length, in my view, quite rightly. But I think you'll find, I mean, Farage, as I said months ago, if he was leading the Conservative Party into the election, they'd win.
That's interesting.
Because, I mean, he is the only person who, when you see being interviewed, answers the questions directly, stands for simple issues and makes it 100% clear what he stands for, with no shilly-shallying around, whereas the other two, I'm afraid, you watch the debates, I mean, they're so boring. All they do is not answer the question and give these terrible, empty promises.
But on the fundamental question about his future intentions and his future plans, Nigel Farage will not be honest. He was asked it, and he had every deflection, every answer in his back pocket to say, well, your viewers won't be interested.
But he's got a clear plan for now, and it's hypothetical to ask about whether he'd join the Conservative Party.
He wouldn't rule it out.
He hasn't been asked yet, and he hasn't even
he wouldn't rule it out.
And in fact, he's written about his hatred of the Conservative Party, who behaved so badly towards him during the Brexit.
And he really went after Boris Johnson yesterday, accusing him of hypocrisy over the Russia-Ukraine issue. Right, Piers and Luciana, thank you so much. We are late for the news. Here's Sophia.
It's 11:33. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Your headlines. The wife of Julian Assange says he'll seek a full pardon after agreeing to plead guilty to a single felony count of illegally obtaining and disclosing national security material. The 52-year-old founder of WikiLeaks left the UK this morning and is due to appear before a federal judge in the Mariana Islands, a US territory in the Western Pacific. He's expected to be sentenced to 5 years, roughly the equivalent of the time he's already served in Britain before returning to Australia. The Conservative Party says it can no longer support two candidates accused of placing bets on when the election would take place. Craig Williams and Laura Saunders are the subject of inquiries by the Gambling Commission. Both will still appear on election ballots because the deadlines for nominations has now passed. Meanwhile, the Labour Party is outlining a plan to tackle knife crime. It will include creating a new cross-government coalition to work on solutions, as well as community hubs involving youth workers and career advisors. The Conservatives criticise the plan, accusing Labour of failing to tackle knife crime in London. And a yellow weather health alert is in force across most of the country, with temperatures set to exceed 30 degrees today. Yesterday's high topped 28 degrees in Surrey, making it the hottest day of the year so far. But forecasters are warning it won't last long, with showers and possibly thunderstorms predicted later tomorrow. And a Japanese state visit hosted by the King will begin soon, but without Princess Anne. She'll miss today's state banquet after suffering minor injuries to her head when she was kicked by a horse on her Gatcombe Park estate. She's understood to have suffered some memory loss, but is expected to make a full recovery. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2691 and €1.1829. The price of gold is £1,840 and 67 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,266 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Up at noon, good afternoon Britain with Emily and Tom. What have you got on the show today?
Well,
Goodness me.
We've got the Emperor and Empress of Japan in town.
Emperor
Are they coming
on the show? Akihito is going to be here in the studio.
Oh, how
nice. Emperor Akihito will be greeted by King Charles as the official state visit of the Japanese royal family gets underway. It's all kicking off around midday.
I think this is the first one he's hosted as king, I think.
Yes, there was the South Koreans came.
Don't think it was a full
but
state
that
visit.
might not have been a full state visit because they were greeted by the Prime Minister.
That's right.
Although they did have events at Buckingham Palace as well.
Yeah.
But
Well, anyway, it's going to be fabulous, and we're going to be there, so that's fantastic. But of course, Princess Anne won't be because she spent a second day in hospital. So we're going to have some fantastic live footage from there, and we'll be speaking to a number of royal guests. Of course, on the political side, I'm interested in this row over immigration. Another debate today between James James Cleverly and his counterpart Yvette Cooper. The Tories accusing Labour of...
The Tories like the debate on this.
They do.
Because they think, even though Rwanda... not going to happen because they're not going to win the election. At least they say they've got a plan.
They say they've got a plan, and they're saying that, you know, all these migrants are waiting, biding their time.
Quoted quite a few
biding their time.
Saying we're waiting until July the 5th.
But is it true? Because Nigel Farage was on a boat today and he was seeing other boats coming, so clearly people aren't biding their time.
But it is interesting. We would have expected, I think, given the weather was lovely yesterday, we would have expected it to be a very high day. And it wasn't a very high... We were expecting, I think, 60,000 to be passed, or 50,000 to be passed yesterday, and it wasn't passed. So something is going on.
I don't think that's fair to say, because a couple of days ago, weren't there about 1,000 people crossing over? And also this morning, there have been another couple of boats crossing over.
There have been a couple of boats. There's a couple of boats, but you'd expect, with this weather, you'd probably expect some more.
I don't know. We had a record day very recently.
Not yesterday.
Perhaps, though, some are biding their time.
Too many, that's for sure.
Right. That and a lot more.
Also, heatwave warnings.
Heatwave warnings.
We're getting a bit irritated by those. Have I got my sunblock on?
Yeah.
Of course I do, Andrew.
Drink lots of water.
Of course I do. I'm very fair.
I love
and nanny stay on the tube,
weather.
drink water.
No, it's marvellous.
It's ridiculous. Drives me nuts.
Fabulous. Right, Emily and Tom from midday, but still to come, we're going to be talking to a royal expert who thinks that the palace might be downplaying the severity of Princess Anne's injuries. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A hot one today for some, but not all. It is much cloudier across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland from this old weather front that is also introducing slightly cooler air to the far northwest. But ahead of it, across the bulk of England and Wales, it is a very warm day, hotter than yesterday for South Wales and South West England because it is a bit sunnier, but a cloudier day for Scotland and Northern Ireland, brightening up in the west, but that weather front is also providing some outbreaks of rain across eastern Scotland, and we might just see one or two afternoon heavy showers over the hills of northern England and southern Scotland. Temperatures in the north close to average, but in the south well above. We could easily top out at 30 Celsius close to London this afternoon. As we go into the evening, we'll still have some of that cloud and rain across the far northeast, so a dull and damp end to the day across the east coast of Scotland, but something a bit brighter further west, but it is quite a bit fresher here as well. The cloud breaking up a little more across Northern Ireland, so some brighter spells likely. Say the small chance of a shower or two over northern England and southern Scotland, but plenty of fine, dry and very warm weather here, but the heat is really across the south. A balmy summer's evening here. As we go through the night, not a great deal of change. I think the rain will peter out across the eastern parts of Scotland. Could turn quite misty this evening, and the threat of this low cloud just sticking to that east coast as we go into tomorrow as well. Still one or two scattered showers over northern England and southern Scotland, but most places dry. Quite a contrast in temperatures. A comfortable night in the northwest with temperatures down to single figures. Much of England and Wales staying in the mid-teens, so quite a warm and humid night, and another hot day for many tomorrow. Could be quite cloudy across the eastern counties of England early doors. Some uncertainty about whether that will clear away, but many places again fine and sunny. Still quite cloudy in eastern Scotland, but a brighter day for Northern Ireland, and again very warm in that sunshine over parts of eastern England. Goodbye.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
11:42, Britain's Newsroom with GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has been talking to reporters in London about knife crime this morning. Let's have a look.
I was the chief prosecutor for 5 years, and therefore I prosecuted many cases involving the use of knives, and I've made it my personal mission to deal with this. It is a moral mission so far as I'm concerned. It isn't a question of urban versus rural. In fact, I think there's more knife crime, sadly, in rural areas, or at least it's going up more quickly. And I think it's not fair on the families we've been hearing from this morning to simply point the finger to somebody else. This is something which a government needs to take responsibility for. I will take responsibility for, on a cross-party basis, to make the change that we need. And some of it we can get on with quite quickly in terms of banning knives available online. Some of it will take longer, but it's a moral mission so far as I'm concerned. And I made a commitment to these families and other families that we will now move from the talking stage to the action stage.
He's got a bit of a tan, but he's still very reserved, isn't he?
And it's all very well to talk
back.
about... But one of the big issues with knife crime is stop and search. Yeah. And if you're in London, where we live, the Mayor of London has a problem with it. Because he said it impacts negatively on a certain part of the community, the black community. I'm sorry, stop and search is a really important part of cracking down on knife crime.
The black community are predominantly the victims, young black men as well, of knife crime. Winston has been in touch. Thank you, Winston. Said it's summer. Having a hot few days is expected. No need for amber or other warnings. I wonder when we introduce these amber warnings.
It's ridiculous. And I'm just saying, when you go on the tube, because I'll be on the tube in a little later, they'll say, carry water.
You won't be on the tube.
I will. I always use the tube every day. Got my tube pass.
Have you?
Yeah, I get it because I'm a certain age. I get a free one.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
You go on, but you only go on the tube because it's free.
I've always used the tube.
Oh, good. I'm surprised.
I haven't had a car in London since 1988.
Do people give you a hard time on the tube?
Sometimes.
And how's that?
Well, it's fine. Goes the territory.
Well, Angela has got in touch and said, I'm shocked that political commentator Piers Pottinger doesn't understand why Nigel Farage can answer questions more freely than those who stand a chance of winning power and will be answerable for what they've promised and therefore are more guarded.
Well, he has a point. That's a very good point from... Who was that from, Angela? Because,
Angela.
Of course, yeah... sorry, Farage knows he can't win the election, so his manifesto was torn to shreds by the Institute for Fiscal Studies, who said it promotes political cynicism. But Nigel did make the point. It's not about the numbers, it's about the aspiration and the direction of travel.
The thing is...
He's aiming for being in government 5 years' time.
And Nigel is very straight-talking. That's why people like him, because he doesn't dress it up. Now, obviously, our viewer there would say because he doesn't have to dress it up at the moment, and maybe in the fullness of time that would change if he was going to be heading towards number 10. But I don't know. I kind of think that's his character, isn't it? I don't know whether he would be able to not talk sincerely. Luciana Berger is wrong. Yesterday, Nigel Farage made a commitment to be Reform leader for the next 5 years, says Anthony from home. Come on, Andrew, says Christine. The Conservatives have a plan, just like all their plans. They're coming to nothing. Boris was going to stop the flipping boats, so was Sunak.
Oh,
come on.
Yeah, but of course, if he was serious as well about the boats, there was an opportunity to get the legislation on the boats through Parliament in emergency legislation. He could have kept Parliament sitting till 4 in the morning, but no, they put it off till after the recess, put it off to something else, and now it's not even going to happen till after the general election, so it'll now never happen at all.
Right, still to come this morning, Princess Anne, who competed at the 1976 Montreal Olympic Games, of course, is spending her 3rd day in hospital after being injured by a horse. We'll have the latest on her condition. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Giovanni is axed following growing allegations of threatening and abusive behaviour.
We won't see his little
toes dancing around the dance floor again, which is a shame.
Was it the BBC saying, you know, we've had some bad publicity about this star, do we need to maybe let him go? Or was it Giovanni himself saying that, you know, he's had to, with all the bad publicity and what's the allegations against him, he's walked away? We don't exactly know. But what we do know is that Amanda Abingdon, who he was coupled with last year on the last series of Strictly, left claiming that she had nasty behaviour from him in rehearsals when they were training for their routines. And she's also been diagnosed with PTSD, which she is blaming or claiming happened because of the training that she was put under Giovanni. It's very sad because I've met Giovanni on quite a few occasions, and he comes across as a very nice gentleman, actually, and the fans absolutely love him. And even though the allegations are out there against him, everybody I speak to in terms of the fans are on his side.
I mean, from the fans' point of view, they don't see what goes on behind the scenes. All they see is an incredibly gifted dancer who we're seeing footage of now.
It might come out later, but there's all sorts of things coming out because after Amanda came out and claimed all this behaviour against him, a male celebrity last week also came out and voice their opinion. Yeah, a lot of fans will be gutted, but as you say, we don't know the full story yet as what's gone on.
And it's incredible pressure that no one's allowed to be, a duffer right from the start now.
I mean, it's one thing learning lines if you're an actor, but it's a different kettle of fish altogether if you're learning moves that you've never done before. So you've got...
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. So Princess Anne is suffering temporary memory loss, we believe, after a horse riding accident that caused minor head injury. She wasn't actually riding the horse, actually, at the time.
If she had been wearing a helmet, of course.
Yeah.
She's a very accomplished equestrian rider. Now, this means she'll not be able to greet... She wasn't there for the greeting of the Emperor and Empress of Japan when they arrived today for the state visit, which is being hosted by the King.
So joining us now is BBC Royal correspondent Michael Cole. Good morning, Michael. Good to see you. We heard this story break yesterday, and it sounded like a minor knock from the horse that she'd received, and we know that she's a tough cookie, Princess Anne. But actually, as the hours are ticking by, it's starting to feel a little more ominous. How about you?
Yeah, good morning, Bev. Morning, Andrew. Princess Royal is 73, 74 August. Concussion is no minor matter. Get a blow on the skull, it shakes up the brain, causes a brain bleed, and that can lead on to all sorts of other nasty complications. So 2 nights in hospital. The Princess Royal doesn't take orders from many people, but she will take orders from her doctors, and obviously they're being cautious, and quite rightly so, keeping her under observation. But as you said, Beverly, and then we see her in happier times, although in fact that is in fact a funeral, I believe, where everybody's wearing black tie. But you know, she is a tough cookie. I think back to 1976, you mentioned the Montreal Olympics earlier. She had a very bad fall at the Montreal Olympics and concussion. Britain, I'm afraid, lost out to the USA in the 3-day eventing thing. But even before that, in April 1976, at the Portman Horse Trials, she fell and her horse rolled on top of her, broke a vertebrae, and she was concussed. That was quite serious, and it was doubtful whether she would make the Olympics. But of course, being the tough cookie that she is, she did make it. So she's been this route before, but that was 48 years ago, Olympics. These days, she's older. But she is, as Andrew just said, an accomplished equestrian, and we all saw when she left the gates in the procession for the King's procession, the Trooping of the Colour, she was on board a frisky Canadian horse called Noble, and it acted up, but she immediately and brilliantly brought it under control. But in this instance, as you've suggested, we don't know the full details, but it seems that she wasn't riding, and she approached the horses on her estate. Now, horses are very unpredictable animals at the best of times, and obviously something went wrong, and the horses either butted her or hit her, and she sustained a slight injury, but enough to have her admitted to the nearest trauma hospital where she is, and I'm sure undergoing care. Probably reluctantly, she would prefer to be back on her estate doing what she does best, but she must listen to the doctors, and we can only hope for GBNews prompt recovery.
Well, I think we've lost you, Michael, but that's OK because we're wrapping up a little early today to bring you some pictures of this state visit at Buckingham Palace. We will be back tomorrow at 9:30.
See you then.
Well, what an absolutely beautiful day it is for the state visit of the Emperor and Empress of Japan. They will be meeting the King and Queen, and they'll be visiting all sorts of different locations, so we're going to bring you that live footage.
And, of course, a beautiful day means risks on the water. Yes, the Channel could experience a high day of crossings, but is it going to be lower because of the anticipation of a new government? We'll have the details.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hot and sunny for many places in the south today, but cloudier, cooler in the north and with a few showers. We start the day with cloud cover across some western and northwestern parts of the UK. Northern Ireland, Western Scotland seeing a few spots of rain. By the afternoon, the weather front responsible for that rain pushes into eastern Scotland, northern England, and could give a few showers, perhaps some longer spells of rain for northeastern parts of Scotland. Otherwise, widespread sunny skies for much of England and Wales, and rising temperatures 30 or 31 Celsius possible in some of the hotter spots. Later Tuesday, some of the heavier rain across northeast Scotland begins to clear, but it could last until the evening, and there'll be always the chance of a shower or two further west across Scotland and in the south, particularly over the southern uplands. It's drying up and clearing up across Northern Ireland, but for northern England, one or two sharp showers possible over the North Pennines, for example. Wales, central and southern England, though, plenty of sunshine. Particularly through the evening, actually, it's likely to become increasingly sunny as the sun starts to go down, and then clear skies overnight as the cloud and rain in the northeast starts to move into the North Sea. Always a chance of the odd shower continuing in one or two spots overnight, however, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder as well. But it's a warm night for many of us, 17 Celsius in some spots by dawn, and so it could be uncomfortable for sleeping. Nevertheless, for most, it's a fine start to Wednesday. Plenty of early morning sunshine. Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, much of England and Wales. One exception, northeast England, eastern Scotland could see some low cloud and some mistiness around the coast. And there's the chance further west of a heavy thundery downpour later as temperatures rise, and we're looking at highs into the high 20s, low 30s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big this summer. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have said stump. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 11:59 and the Emperor and Empress of Japan are receiving a royal welcome as they begin their state visit to the United Kingdom.
Yes, the couple will also attend a state banquet hosted by King Charles at Buckingham Palace this evening.
But the Princess Royal will not be in attendance as she remains in hospital following a head injury thought to have been caused by a horse 2 days ago.
Well, we can go live to the event and see what's happening. As we can see, a military-style band there at Horse Guards Parade.
Indeed, this is going to be a full-scale state visit from Emperor Akihito and Empress Masako. The scale of this is going to be one of the largest events that the King has been hosting for any foreign dignitary, and perhaps certainly the largest event that the King has been involved in since his diagnosis of cancer.
Absolutely, and what a beautiful day for it. According to reports, the Emperor and Empress are going to make somewhat of a sightseeing tour of this state visit. They'll be going to the Buckingham Palace for a banquet. They'll be laying flowers in St George's Chapel for the late Queen. They'll be visiting the Thames Barrier. Now, they have a huge connection with the royal family here in the United Kingdom. Indeed, they both studied at Oxford University.
Yes.
Which is very interesting. So a very tight connection with this country and our royal family.
But what we're looking at now is that the Guard of Honour is preparing to give a royal salute, and we will hear the national anthem any moment now. The Emperor and Empress of Japan have been under a sovereign's escort under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Woodward. The Blues and Royals with the Band of the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment. That's formed on Horse Guards parades just to the rear of the Guard of Honour as the Empress and Emperor are making their way to this site that we're looking at now.
Yes, of course, and this is, as you said, the first state visit since the King was diagnosed with cancer, and he will welcome them to the country in this state visit. Lots and lots of pomp and pageantry awaits on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon.
And this is something that we, as the British, do very well. Of course, it's one of those things that perhaps is best for our international connections and those... Oh, let's listen in. Arriving there at the pavilion, greeted by the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, there on Horse Guards.